Hi, beautiful people. Top of the day. Happy Saturday. Treat that girl. Happy Saturday, everybody. Happy Saturday. My squeaky chair. I really need to tighten up these screws. That's what it is. Screws need to be tightened. All right, y'all. Happy Saturday. It is January, y'all. It's the end of the month. It's the end of the month. Monday will be the last day of this month. Today is the last day of reading Genesis. It is January 29, 2022. Day number 17 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1035. Today, we read in the last 2 chapters of Genesis, Genesis 49 and 50. And then we're going to pick up in My Big Toe. We're going to read let me see. Maybe we'll just read one chapter since chapter 19 is so long. We're just going to read chapter 18, and then we're going to go over here to the Lost Book of Enki, the memoirs and prophecies of an extraterrestrial God. Don't let the word extraterrestrial throw you off. It just means those from the other realm, not here in the physical realm, right? Those who come from heaven. Okay. So we're going to read one chapter, My Big Toe, and then we're going to start in the introduction. I think it's actually the preface of the Lost Book of Enki, which is going through, yes, the introduction, the attestation, and then it gets into the first tablet. So this is a translation of a more ancient text where the Bible and a lot of other religious faction books were taken from. Now, all of them take some of it from it, and then they add some stuff to it. They take some stuff away. They change the names and stuff. But you can tell if you are familiar, no matter what religion you're in, if you're really familiar with your religion, if you was real serious about it and you read through whatever your religious book was, you will see that once you go outside of that and begin looking at some older manuscripts, if you know and understand the story from the religion you came from, you can see how it was taken from a more ancient text. All right, so with that being said, beautiful people, joy, shalom, shayla, batwabu, divine, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into this real quick. Let's go ahead and do the Shema, which is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy 6. All right, y'all. A call for wholehearted commitment. These are the commands, decrees, and regulations that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you. You must obey them in the land you're about to enter and occupy, and you and your children and grandchildren must fear the Lord your God as long as you live. If you obey all his decrees and commands, you will enjoy a long life. Listen closely, Israel, and be careful to obey. Then all will go well with you, and you will have many children in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed, and when you're getting up. Tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. The Lord your God will soon bring you into the land he swore to give to you when he made a vow to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a land with large, prosperous cities that you did not build. The houses will be richly stocked with goods you did not produce. You will draw water from cisterns you did not dig, and you will eat from vineyards and olive trees you did not plant. When you have eaten your fill in this land, be careful not to forget the Lord who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. You must fear the Lord your God and serve him. When you take an oath, you must only use his name. You must not worship the gods of the neighboring nations, for the Lord your God who lives among you is a jealous God. His anger will flare up against you, and he will wipe you from the face of the earth. You must not test the Lord your God as you did when you complained at Massa. You must diligently obey the commands of the Lord your God, all the laws and decrees he has given you. Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, and all will go well with you. Then you will enter and occupy the good land that the Lord swore to give to your ancestors. You will drive out all the enemies living in the land, just as the Lord said you would. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these laws, decrees, and regulations that the Lord our God has commanded us to obey? Then you must tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his strong hand. The Lord did miraculous signs and wonders before our eyes, dealing terrifying blows against Egypt and Pharaoh and all his people. He brought us out of Egypt so he could give us this land he has sworn to give to our ancestors. And the Lord our God commanded us to obey all these decrees, to fear him, so he can continue to bless us and preserve our lives as he has done to this day. For we will be counted as righteous when we obey all the commands the Lord our God has given unto us. Tiffany, happy snow day. Yes. It has snowed again. This snow seems a little bit heavier than it did the other day. Normally we lift up our, or either the wind was blowing really hard. It's either the wind was snowing really hard or the snow got heavier on the windshield wiper blades, or some nefarious person came through and just knocked all our windshield wiper blades down. Okay, so when we know it's going to snow, we'll take our windshield wiper blades on the vehicles, on all the vehicles, we'll take them and we'll pull them back so they don't freeze to the windshield, right? It is, okay, so I wasn't tripping. It is definitely more dense, right? So that's probably what happened. So forgive me for blaming some nefarious person who probably really wasn't out here in the snow just walking past, knocking down people's windshield wipers. That's why I said it was more like the snow is heavier or the wind was blowing, because we noticed that we got two trucks parked like on the outside of the driveway, and both of those windshield wipers are completely down. Vehicles are covered in snow. The Charger has one windshield wiper up and one down, then the Suburban has both of them up. You know, so we figured maybe it was the wind, maybe it's the heaviness of the snow. Oh, Trina, how was the house? Yeah, we decided against that one. The pictures were, I would say, a little, I'm not going to say deceiving, but if you ever go look at a house and you look at houses on like the apps or whatever, sometimes they use cameras with wide angles to make the room look a lot bigger than what it is, make the backyard look a lot bigger than what it really is when you get there. It was like, oh no, this is not what we saw. I was like, this house already feels too small for us. Like, we got 5 children coming up in here with us. No. The rooms were extremely small. I had to open up. I said, let me make sure we're in the right place. I talked to the realtor. I'm like, yo, this house is a whole lot smaller than what these pictures show. She said, yeah, that's the owner's doing. I was like, this is a little deceiving. You know, the backyard was not even half the size. It was probably the third of the size of what it looked like. You know, we thought it was really good. It's out in Elizabeth City, nice waterfront property. It was like, oh yes, you know, because we already been talking about getting ski-doos and everything. And so, but yeah, no. Absolutely not. And then when we got inside, the realtor, she was pretty nice. You know, she was upfront with us, and she let us know that the house had been vacant for like 4 years, right? And the owner is an older couple who wants to sell it. They actually bought it a few years back for their daughter, but their daughter decided not to move to the area, you know, so the house has just been sitting vacant, you know. So, but during the time that it was sitting vacant, about 5 years ago, I'm like, this long? I'm like, this is a real good neighborhood, because ain't nobody set up a crack house in here or nothing. You know, we play too much sometimes, right? And she just looked at us like, I'm like, okay, that was a joke. Clearly, she's probably not familiar with our culture's jokes or whatever. So it was probably a little shocking to her that I kind of made a joke. So I was like, I got to quit joking around with different types of people. Can it be renovated? What they did there, it seemed to be a little bit of renovations going on. But what she told us before I asked the question, she had her mask on. I didn't have on a mask, right? Because I need to smell stuff and everything. So when we went in, she said, now I will let you know. She said, it's been about 5 years. She said the owner said that there was a problem with the roof. and they got it replaced. But before they found out what the problem was, in one of the upstairs bedrooms towards the corner of the house, there was a leak in the roof. That's why they had to get it replaced. But when they came in to do it, they had a home inspector come in, but they also found out that there was mold. As soon as she said mold, I'm like, that's what I'm smelling. I don't want to just come out and say that. We were just going to ask strategic questions just to see if she would be up front with us, because, you know, don't play us. If you're not going to be honest with us, you might not be the realtor that we really want. Be honest with us, right? And so she said there was mold. So as soon as she said it, me and my husband just kind of looked at each other like, we was like, yeah, we're done. But she said they came in, they renovated and stuff, you know. They got all the mold out from what she said. I mean, we had already decided against it at this point anyway, because it was too small, right? And so she had her mask on, and I'm like, well, when we kind of went back outside to the deck, because it's like a double deck on the back, I was like, oh, these are good trees for the kids to climb and swing. We put hammocks out here, you know. But okay, I'm gonna hold that comment. So she said that, well, it has been vacant, she said, and they told me that everything was replaced. So you're free to have your own inspector come in, she said, but I will tell you there is somebody that's looking at it now, and they just had an inspection done, and they're actually waiting for the report for the inspectors to come back on what they think about it. And here's the thing. They actually called her while we were there. And they told her that based on the home inspection, like we was right there, we could like hear through her phone. Based on the home inspection, they chose not to go forward with this house. And that's all we need to say. Like, well, we weren't going to go forward with it anyway. Because when she told us that, she didn't even have to tell us that, because I was going to bring it up because I could smell it. You know, and I'm like, okay, so if it's been 5 years since they renovated this and they cleaned out all the mold, why can I still smell mold in this house? All the kids outside, let's go. You know, so my husband like, yeah, we ain't doing this, you know. But she said the house has been vacant. I said, I get that it's been vacant. So if there was a problem, if there had been people actually living in here over the last 5 years, that smell probably would have not been in here, possibly. But because it's been closed up, not really being nobody going in and out. And so even if they did replace it, all that smell and stuff is still in there. It was like, you know, we like our lungs. So no, we decide we're not going to go with this property, you know. So, but yeah, so Trina, that was like the long answer to your question. How did it go? Yeah, no. Soon when I walked in, first when we pulled up, we looked at it, it was like, this is way smaller than them wide angle pictures, you know. But when I walked in, and I smelled the mold, I'm like, okay, let's go outside, children. And she came outside, was talking to us, and we did a quick walkthrough through the house, you know, but was like, yeah, no, you know. So that one is out. You know, the pictures made it look beautiful, but actually walking in there, absolutely not. Y'all won't get us. Y'all think we dumb. We're not. Far from it. Okay, so but yeah, that's how it went. Yeah, Tiffany, we walked away quickly from that one. That is not the property for us. So we're looking at a couple other ones. Preferably how many bedrooms? What we would like is 6 bedrooms. We got 5 children, right? That still live with us. Jeremiah might be on his way out the door, but maybe not. He just turned 18. But he gonna probably be, he was like, son, you can stay here really till you get married for real, you know. So in a perfect world, we're looking for 6 bedrooms. We'll compromise with 5, right? We'll compromise with 5 because Josh, Saya, and Isaiah are all 2 years apart, you know, but they always with each other anyway. So it was like, well, we could put them together, possibly all 3 of them in the same room because they be with each other all the time anyway. We'll compromise with 5. In a perfect world, 6 bedrooms, right? We need a huge yard, because we got smaller children, they need room to grow, you know, so, but that's what we're looking for. Audrey, shalom. Shalom. Yahuwah is one. Oh, yes, great spirit. Be with us wherever we are in this world. Hallelujah. Yes. He really didn't stick here in the district. No? Oh, well, that's good. That's good. So y'all mail and stuff won't be held up today. Are we moving to the country? We really want to. But, we can't go too far because of our business here in Chesapeake, right? So we got to get back and forth to the warehouse. And we think about if something happens, what if there's this terrorist attack or they shut down the borders of the states? We're in Virginia. Our business will be in Virginia, but we live in North Carolina. So we looked at a couple houses when we were out there yesterday. So we only chose Elizabeth City due to the land we get at a cheaper price, right? It's a little bit cheaper to live in North Carolina than it is Virginia. The houses in Virginia is ridiculously high. Not all of them. It's some good ones. So now we've adjusted our search. Look, I was just about to tell you, Tiffany. She said my son bought some good acreage in Suffolk. We're now changed our direction to Suffolk, which is more, it's still country, and there are some nice houses out there with decent land, so we're looking in Suffolk now. We're looking for land, preferably, if they don't already have one that's built how we want it. We still gonna probably buy one this time around anyway. I'm just planning for the future years coming up to actually build our house, because we want to get a good piece of land. We want to build on the land that's gonna be our forever home, so to speak. But for now, we know we ain't gonna be that. We're gonna be there for some years, but it won't be our forever home, So obedient to y'all. Shalom, shalom. Okay, let's get this started, y'all. How many minutes we in? We like, what, 17 minutes in? Okay. Let's start this so we can start this this lost book of Enki with some of this stuff in here that y'all gonna be quite shocked that y'all find. Okay, let's go to Genesis 49. We right at the end. Okay. Jacob's last words to his sons. Then Jacob called together all of his sons and said, "Gather around me, and I will tell you what will happen to each of you in the days to come. Come and listen, you sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are first in rank and first in power, but you are as unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to bed with my wife. You defiled my marriage couch. Simeon and Levi, you are two of a kind. Their instruments are instruments of violence. May I never join in their meetings. May I never be a party to their plans. For in their anger, they murdered men, and they crippled oxen just for sport. A curse on their anger, for it is fierce. A curse on their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them among the descendants of Jacob. I will disperse them throughout Israel." Sheesh. Judah, your brothers will praise you. You will grasp your enemies by the neck. All your relatives will bow before you. Judah, my son, is a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion, he crouches down and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants, until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor. He ties his foal to a grapevine, the colt of his donkey to a choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Zebulun will settle by the seashore and will be a harbor for ships. His borders will extend to Sidon. Issachar is a sturdy donkey, resting between two saddle packs. When he sees how good the countryside is and how pleasant the land, he will bend his shoulder to the load and submit himself to hard labor. Dan will govern his people like any other tribe in Israel. Dan will be a snake beside the road, a poisonous viper along the path that bites the horse's hooves so its rider is thrown off. I trust in you for salvation, O Lord. Gad will be attacked by marauding bands, but he will attack them when they retreat. Asher will dine on rich foods and produce food fit for kings. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is the foal of a wild donkey, the foal of a wild donkey at a spring, one of the wild donkeys on the ridge. Archers attacked him savagely. They shot at him and harassed him, but his bow remained taut and his arms were strengthened by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the shepherd, the rock of Israel. May the God of your father help you. May the Almighty bless you with the blessings of the heavens above, and blessings of the watery depths below, and blessings of the breast and womb. May my fatherly blessings on you surpass the blessings of my ancestors, reaching to the heights of the eternal hills. May these blessings rest on the head of Joseph, who is a prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, devouring his enemies in the morning and dividing his plunder in the evening. These are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said as he told his sons goodbye. He blessed each one with an appropriate message. Jacob's death and burial. Then Jacob instructed them, "Soon I will die and join my ancestors. Bury me with my father and grandfather in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite. This is the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittites as a permanent burial site. There Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried. And there I buried Leah. It is the plot of land and the cave that my grandfather Abraham bought from the Hittites." When Jacob had finished his charge to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and joined his ancestors in death. Now, if you're going to die, that should be the way you go. After you bless your children, all right, y'all got it? All right, I'm out, my G. I'll see you when you get here. Last chapter for the day. Zoe Betwabu. First time in a live chat. Okay. We'll quote it from watching the previous videos. Okay. All right, last chapter, y'all. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph told the physicians who served him to embalm his father's body. So Jacob was embalmed. The embalming process took the usual 40 days, and the Egyptians mourned his death for 70 days. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph approached Pharaoh's advisors and said, "Please do me this favor and speak to Pharaoh on my behalf. Tell him that my father made me swear an oath. He said to me, 'Listen, I am about to die. Take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in the tomb I prepared for myself. So please allow me to go and bury my father. After his burial, I will return without delay.' Pharaoh agreed to Joseph's request. 'Go and bury your father, as he made you promise,' he said. So Joseph went up to bury his father. He was accompanied by all the Pharaoh's officials, all the senior members of Pharaoh's household, and all the senior officers of Egypt. Joseph also took his entire household and his brothers and their households, but they left their little children and flocks and herds in the land of Goshen. A great number of chariots and charioteers accompanied Joseph, and when they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad near the Jordan River, they had a very great and solemn memorial service with a 7-day period of mourning for Joseph's father. The local residents, the Canaanites, watched them mourning at the threshing floor of Atad. Then they renamed that place, the place which is near Jordan, Abel Mizraim, for they said, 'This is a place of deep mourning for these Egyptians.' So Jacob's sons did as he had commanded them. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him in a cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre. This is the cave that Abraham had bought as a permanent burial site from Ephron the Hittite." Linda, morning. Look, and if y'all didn't read this in the Legends of the Jews, y'all know how all the time it's always something crazy that break out at somebody's funeral. Sometimes. Maybe not all the time. But sometimes our folk, it may not be at the funeral. It could be at the repast or something. At somebody's house out there, everybody got drunk or something. Somebody out there fighting. Well, this is what happened at Jacob's tomb. All the brothers broke out fighting, but you got to read the Legends of the Jews to get some of that story, right? Okay. I ain't going to get into it, but it's there. You should go read it. I forget which. Oh, maybe I did. I think I named it. If you go back last year when we read it, something in the title about a fight broke out at Daddy's funeral. Something like that. Something like that, if I remember correctly. I had to go back and find it. Let me just make myself a note. Funeral of Joseph. I'm sorry, funeral of Jacob. I remember now. I got something alluding to the fact that this was the video where I read that particular section. So I'll post that. Okay. Joseph reassures his brothers. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him, they said. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of God, the servants of the God of your father, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he assured them by speaking kindly to them. The death of Joseph. So Joseph and his brothers and their families continued to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his son Ephraim, and he lived to see the birth of the children of Manasseh's son Machir, whom he claimed as his own. Soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers, but God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will bring you back to the land he solemnly promised to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath, and he said, when God comes to help you and lead you back, you must take my bones with you. So Joseph died at the age of 110. The Egyptians embalmed him, and his body was placed in a coffin in Egypt. Okay, so you also, when you go read about Jacob's death, you're also going to read about when they were leaving Egypt and I ain't gonna say shenanigans, the trouble that Moses went through trying to retrieve his bones and what he had to do. He actually, because Joseph's body, if y'all remember correctly, now I understand what was really happening. It tells you of some of the magic that was being used during that time, right? But it's not necessarily magic, but we would think it's magic today. But the magic that had to be used to call Joseph's bones from up out of his tomb, because it wasn't a normal tomb that kind of just sat on the ground where you can walk into the structure or maybe just dig 6 feet. His body was in a chamber below the ground, so Moses had to cast a spell, so to speak, to cause the ground to loosen up and for the grave to come up out the ground so he could actually retrieve his bones, right? Now, Moses lived in Egypt all his life, so he knew how the pharaohs were buried. Remember, Joseph was treated like a pharaoh's second-hand command, so he had all the honors what a pharaoh would, which is why he knew where his bones would be down in the earth, right? So just think about all those things. All right. So with that being said, we're done with the book of Genesis, and we're kind of going to restart the book of Genesis when we go through the tablets that have been translated by this gentleman. But before we get there today, because it's Saturday, we're going to read one chapter of My Big Toe, chapter 17? No, chapter 18. It's pretty short. And then we're going to come back here. So if y'all been waiting to actually go through these translated tablets, we're going to start a little bit of that today. We're only at 29 minutes. We should be done reading this in about 10. And then we'll use the rest of the time to start getting through that. All right. Now this burial story is crazy in the other writing. It is, ain't it? But I kind of understand. I kind of feel okay with it. Linda, morning. I think I saw Nikki come in too. Nikki, hey girl, hey. Greetings. Hold on, I want to make sure I ain't miss nobody on Facebook. Okay, Uncle Nathaniel. All right, y'all. Chapter 18 is page 123 in My Big Toe. Remember, toe is an acronym for Theory of Everything. My big toe, or my perception of the world around me based on my current experiences in life. So we are growing our big toe, right? We're broadening our perception of the world and what the heck is really going on here, right? All right. Not just physically, but also spiritually, right? Because things in the physical will make sense once we understand what's going on in the spiritual realm, because this is just a manifestation of what happened in the world that we can't see with your regular eyes. Okay. Something came through there. Okay. In the beginning, hold on. I looked this word up. Causality. That's how you pronounce it. Thank you, Trina. The study of cause and effect. Causality. I was looking at the pronunciation. The S be throwing me off sometimes, but it's pronounced like a Z. Causality. Okay. In the beginning, causality and mysticism. That's the name of the chapter. Beginnings are always difficult. Wherever one starts, there is always the question, what was before that? The question comes from our sense of objectivity. The question comes from our sense of objective causality, that everything must be preceded by its cause. Must everything have a cause? If no, then one leaps immediately to invoking mystical beginnings. If yes, then the beginning is a logical impossibility. There can, by definition, be no beginning if everything must have a cause. Let me read that again. There can, by definition, be no beginning if everything must have a cause. By the logic of causality, beginnings are illogical. The logic of causality requires, because we do exist, the initial existence from which we are derived to erupt spontaneously from nothing. Clearly, the notion of objective causality must violate its own logic in order to get started. The other alternative, there is no beginning. Existence is somehow infinite and perpetual, is itself a mystical assertion that comes from nowhere and goes nowhere. Such an unbounded mysticism offers its supporters no possibility of either answers or clues. Beginning with the premise that our ignorance of beginnings is total and perpetual is not a particularly clever way to begin an analysis of beginnings. Easy perhaps, but not useful. This logical alternative provides a trivial solution that leaves no foundation upon which to build a reality. Thus, the logical result of invoking an objective causality is a mystical beginning. Likewise, the logical result of denying an objective causality, our beginning began without prior cause, is also a mystical beginning. Although the logic of our objective causality would seem to indicate that our beginning must be mystical, that is not necessarily so. It depends on the reality in which such a beginning is taking place and the reality from which we are viewing it. Causality is system specific. The logic of causality, the logic of PMR, physical matter reality, physics, for example, holds within a given causal system. The logic of causality only requires that a given system's beginning appears to be mystical from a point of view that lies within that system. The logic of causality can say nothing about the beginnings of its own system, because those beginnings lie outside that system, beyond the reach of its own causal logic. Beginnings belong to the next higher level of causality and are beyond the purview or scope of a subsystem's own causal logic. Imagine a hierarchy of causal systems, each being a subset of the next. Thus, mysticism may be removed from our own beginning if we can obtain the perspective of the superset to which we belong. I am not saying that our objective causality should be tossed out. The logic of our objective causality has been and remains the philosophical foundation of our science. It has motivated us to ask, how does this work, or what caused that? It has led to the technology and understanding that is now begging us to take the next step beyond the purely material. I am not putting down the logic of our objective causality. I am a scientist. I live and work by it. I am simply putting it into the proper perspective. I am pointing out its logical limitations, the boundary of its meaningful application, the fact that it requires its beginning to violate its own logic. Thus, our beginning, from the point of view of our object causality, must be indefinable or equivalently mystical. If you do not logically equate indefinable with mystical, that's fine. Given the subject is the creation of our reality, our beginnings, the terms necessarily undefined and unknowable quickly morph into mystical in the minds of many. Thus, I use the word mystical to generally describe the unknowable. You're welcome, Pooh. By the time you reach the end of this trilogy, the veil of mysticism will be logically removed from our beginnings, and you will clearly understand the roots of our existence and how and why those roots came into being. Once we realize the casual logic that gives us science also limits our understanding of the larger reality and its beginning, we are free to begin exploring the larger truth. Without this realization, our perspective and capacity to understand is trapped in a conceptual prison, a belief trap of our own making. This is amazing how we're getting to this part, and we're also about to read some things that's going to broaden your horizons on what scriptures are and what scriptures are not and where they originated, right? Our big toe is growing no matter where we're reading from and experiencing. Okay. Without this realization, our perspective and capacity to understand is trapped in a conceptual prison, a belief trap of our own making. The erroneous belief in a universal causality as opposed to a local causality is used repetitively to make those who would dare rationally tackle the questions of beginnings appear to be ignorant and incorrect. The repeatedly and hold on, I know how to pronounce this word. Iteratively. I think that's wrong. Iteratively. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I know this word. I ain't illiterate, y'all. I'm not that illiterate. Okay, I'm gonna have to look this word up. The repeatedly and I'm just gonna look it up right now. Hold on 1 second. Google. Hold on. T-E-R-A-C-I-V-E-L-Y. Iteratively. I think this. Iteratively? Pronounce.
Iterative.
Oh.
Iterative.
Iteratively. Okay. All right. I was saying it wrong. Iterative. Okay. Sorry. The repeatedly and iteratively asked question, what was before that, inevitably must end with the confession of complete ignorance existing at the foundation of an otherwise rational discourse. The position is taken that logical arguments built upon a foundation of ignorance are highly suspect and can be dispensed with immediately as foolish or unsubstantiated conjecture. Our physical space-time causality is local and simply does not apply to what was before that. Otherwise, we would either be stuck with no beginning or we would have spontaneously popped out of nothing. Either of those alternatives leads to mystical beliefs that are not scientifically or logically productive. Neither makes good sense, nor provides a rational foundation from which to build a scientific big picture of everything. A major paradigm shift described within this section provides another alternative, necessarily mystical from the PMR point of view, that is not belief-based, that does make good sense, and that is scientifically and logically productive. Our beginnings appear mystical to us because of the limitations of our logic and because of the limitations that our belief-based perspectives impose upon our minds. If you raise science, as well as your vision and understanding, to the next higher level of causality, to the super system that contains PMR as a subsystem, or the physical matter reality as a subsystem, the ever-present mysticism will recede to the outer edges of your newly acquired knowledge. If your picture or your worldview or understanding of reality is significantly bigger than your neighbor's picture, your neighbor may see you as a mystic. Indeed, you will always appear to be a mystic from a viewpoint that is greatly limited in its understanding, regardless of how rational, complete, or scientific your understanding is. Which is why a lot of times people who are full of wisdom, like you have people calling different yogis. It's a Sanskrit word or a Eastern word. A yogi, somebody that if you don't understand, you would think they know how to do magic. But no, your understanding is not complete. It's not that they're doing magic. They understand something that you don't. And it can be scientifically proven what they are doing, right? A lot of times we call them mystics. Oh, witchcraft, stay away from them. You ain't supposed to be able to do that as a human. Who says so? You have not been exposed to a lot of truth, have you? Right? If your picture, worldview, or understanding of reality is significantly bigger than your neighbor's picture, your neighbor may see you as a mystic. Indeed, you will always appear to be a mystic from a viewpoint that is greatly limited in its understanding, regardless of how rational, complete, or scientific your understanding is. A mystic appears to be animated by unknowable interactions that lie beyond rational understanding. Perhaps your dog thinks hold on. Perhaps your dog thinks that you are a powerful, irrational mystic. If your neighbor also finds you to be a particularly good, loving, wise, productive, successful, and capable person, he should try to understand what you seem to understand. If, on the other hand, you appear arrogant, condescending, manipulating, or begin proselytizing and asking for donations, he would do well to keep his door locked and avoid you. And I concur with that. Don't come up here with that foolishness. The quality of your being expresses the correctness of your understanding. Think about that for a moment, and I'm going to repeat it. The quality of your being expresses the correctness of your understanding. Think about that for a moment. What does the quality of your being say about the correctness of your understanding? And that is what we're going to pause at right here for the day. That was good. Now, memoirs and prophecies of an extraterrestrial God. And when we start getting to some of these prophecies from some of these older tablets, y'all gonna start thinking twice or three times about what y'all been reading in Revelations, right? And clearly, let me just get into it. I done did like a big introduction to this book already a couple videos ago. So let me just go ahead and get started before I waste any more time. All right. So it has the contents and the introduction. All right. I'm going to just read because he's going to explain. I ain't going to need to keep explaining this to y'all. Y'all ready? Here we go. This is page 1. Introduction. Some 445,000 years ago, astronauts from another planet came to Earth in search of gold. Stick with the story, right? Stay in class, because some things is going to make sense from what you read in the Bible. Right? Okay, let me just read. Okay. Some 445,000 years ago, astronauts from another planet came to Earth in search of gold. Splashing down in one of Earth's seas, they waded ashore and established Iridu, home in the far away. In the time, the initial settlement expanded to a full-fledged mission Earth. Okay, so this is an introduction, right? He's just kind of summing up what he understands from the tablets that he read. Okay, so this is not the actual scripture part. This is just an introduction and his overall summation of what was said. Okay. Splashing down in one of Earth's seas, they waded ashore and established Iridu, home in the far away. In time, the initial settlement expanded to a full-fledged mission Earth with a mission control center, a spaceport, mining operations, and even a way station on Mars. Dana, if you're here, stick with me. We talked about this, right? Just see it through, right? We seeing it through. Short of manpower, the astronauts employed genetic engineering to fashion primitive workers, Homo sapiens. The deluge that catastrophically swept over the Earth required a fresh start. The astronauts became gods, granting mankind civilization, teaching it to worship. Then about 4,000 years ago, all that had been achieved unraveled in a nuclear calamity brought about by the visitors to Earth in their course of their own rivalries and wars. What had taken place on Earth, and especially the events since human history began, has been called by, what had taken place on Earth, and especially the events since human history began, has been called by Zechariah Sitchin in his The Earth Chronicles series, from the Bible, clay tablets, ancient myths, and archaeological discoveries. But what had preceded the events on Earth, what had taken place on the astronauts' own planet Nibiru that caused the space journeys, the need for gold, the creation of man. What emotions, rivalries, beliefs, morals, or lack thereof motivated the principal players in the celestial and space sagas? What were the relationships that caused mounting tensions on Nibiru and on Earth? What tensions arose between old and young, between those who had come from Nibiru and those born on Earth? And to what extent was what had happened determined by destiny, a destiny whose record of past events hold the key to the future? Would it not be auspicious were one of the key players an eyewitness and one who could distinguish between fate and destiny, to record for posterity the how and where and when and why of it all, the first things and perhaps the last things? But that is precisely what some of them did do, and foremost among them was the very leader who had commanded the first group of astronauts. Make sure you're keeping in mind what we read in the book of Enoch, right? Because if you can stomach the book of Enoch, you will understand some of what is going on here, because it gives some further clarification to some of the things that I still have questions about in the book of Enoch, right? Okay. Not that it answers everything, right? We're just getting bits and pieces of the puzzles. We just shaking out and shaking through, going through the information. But that is precisely what some of them did do, and foremost among them was the very leader who had commanded the first group of astronauts. Scholars and theologians alike now recognize that the Bible tales of creation, of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, the deluge, the Tower of Babel, were based on texts written down millennia earlier in Mesopotamia, especially by the Sumerians, and they, in turn, clearly stated that they obtained their knowledge of past events, many from a time before civilizations began, even before mankind came to be, from the writings of the Anunnaki. And in parentheses, Anunnaki means those who from heaven to earth came, or those that came from heaven. The gods of antiquity. They call the Anunnaki the gods of antiquity. As a result of a century and a half of archaeological discoveries in the ruins of the ancient civilizations, especially in the Near East, which is like the Eastern India and parts of Africa and stuff, the Near East. As a result of a century and a half of archaeological discoveries in the ruins of the ancient civilizations, especially in the Near East, a great number of such early texts have been found. The finds have also revealed the extent of missing texts, so-called lost books, which are either mentioned in discovered texts or are inferred from such texts that are known to have existed because they were cataloged in the royal or temple libraries. Sometimes the secrets of the gods were partly revealed in epic tales, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh. Anybody read that? The Epic of Gilgamesh? You can actually go to YouTube, and I think just about all of the readings of it is about an hour. So it's a really short book, right? And I'm gonna post it for you today. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I would suggest that you do, just so you're familiar with it. And then before I say anything to y'all, I want y'all to tell me what that particular, that's going to be your homework for sometime this weekend, whenever you get it done. When I bring it up again, I'm going to ask you, who does the person in the Epic of Gilgamesh remind you of from the Bible, right? You let me know. I'm going to put that in there. I ain't going to give you no details about it. Some of you may have already read it, but you tell me specifically who that character in there in the Epic of Gilgamesh reminds you of from the Bible stories. It's in the Torah. It's in the Torah. That person is located in the Torah. Okay. Sometimes the secrets of the gods were partly revealed in epic tales, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, that disclosed the young... I'm sorry. Hey, what's up? Was you about to ask me something? Oh, okay. Do me a favor. Tell your cousins to come down here and clean up my living room, please. Thank you. Sometimes the secrets of the gods were partly revealed in epic tales, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, that disclosed the debate among the gods that led to the decision to let mankind perish in the deluge or the flood. Or in a text titled Atrahasis, Atrahassis. That's the name of the text, the Atrahasis, which recalled the mutiny of the Anunnaki, who had toiled in the gold mines that led to the creation of primitive workers, earthlings. From time to time, the leaders of the astronauts, or the Anunnaki, themselves authored compositions, sometimes dictating the text to a chosen scribe, as the text called the Epos, Erraepos, in which one of the two gods who had caused the nuclear calamity sought to shift the blame to his adversary. Sometimes the god acted as his own scribe, as in the case regarding the Book of the Secrets of Thoth, Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge. Y'all heard of Thoth, right? Which the god had secreted in a subterranean chamber. He hid away in a subterranean chamber. Okay. When the Lord God Yahweh, according to the Bible, granted the commandments to his chosen people, he at first inscribed in his own hand 2 stone tablets that he gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. When Moses threw down and broke the first set of tablets in response to the golden calf incident, the replacement was written by Moses on the tablets on both their sides when he stayed on the mount 40 days and 40 nights, according to the dictated words of the Lord. Were it not for a tale recorded on papyrus from the time of the Egyptian king Khufu, Khufu, or Cheops, in parentheses, Cheops. Were it not for a tale recorded on a papyrus from the time of the Egyptian king Khufu, Cheops, concerning the book of the secrets of Thoth, The existence of that book would not have become known. Were it not for the biblical narratives in Exodus and Deuteronomy, we would never have known about the divine tablets and their contents. All would have become part of the enigmatic body of lost books whose very existence would have never come to light. No less painful is the fact that in some instances, we do know that certain texts had existed, but are in the dark regarding their contents. Such is the case regarding the Book of the Wars of Yahweh and the Book of Jasher, which is translated the Book of Righteousness, which are specifically mentioned in the Bible, right? Both those books of the Wars of Yahweh, but in the King James and a couple other versions is called the Book of the Wars of the Lord. So y'all probably remember hearing that or reading that, right? So that's the book it was talking about. And clearly we know the Book of Jasher because we read through that. The Book of Jasher is also known as the Book of Righteousness. Okay. Such is the case regarding the Book of the Wars of Yahweh and the Book of Jasher, Book of Righteousness, which are specifically mentioned in the Bible. In at least 2 instances, the existence of olden books, earlier texts known to the biblical narrator, can be inferred. Chapter 5 of Genesis begins with the statement, "This is the book of Toledoth. This is the book of the Toledoth, Toledoth, of Adam. This is the book of the Toledoth of Adam." The term Toledoth being usually translated as generations, but more accurately meaning historic or genealogical record. The other instance is in chapter 6 of Genesis, where events concerning Noah and the deluge begins with the words, "These are the Toledoth of Noah." Indeed, partial versions of a book that became known as the Book of Adam and Eve have survived over a millennia in Aramaean, Slavonic, Syriac, and Ethiopic languages. And the Book of Enoch, one of the so-called apocryphal books that were not included in the canonized Bible, contains segments that are considered by scholars to be fragments of a much earlier Book of Noah. An oft-quoted example of the extent of lost books is that the famed Library of Alexandria in Egypt, established by the general Ptolemy after Alexander's death in 323 BC, it was said to have contained more than 500,000 volumes, books inscribed on a variety of materials, clay, stone, papyrus, parchment. And that great library, where scholars gathered to study the accumulated knowledge, was burnt down and destroyed in the wars that extended from 48 BC to the Arab conquest in AD 642. What has remained of its treasures is a translation of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible into Greek and fragments retained in the writings of some of the library's resident scholars. It is only thus that we know about the second King Ptolemy commissioned, circa 270 BC, an Egyptian priest whom the Greeks called Manetho, to compile the history of prehistory. Let me read that again. It is only thus that we know that the second King Ptolemy, y'all should be familiar with King Ptolemy from when we read through the book of the Maccabees, right? So his name was all through Maccabees. Shh. I appreciate the cleanup, but can we keep the noise down to a minimum? Isaiah, morning. Yes. Help clean, Josiah. All right, you too, Isaiah. Go. Right, you want to say hi? Isaiah says hi, everybody. This is the one that like to fight everybody. No, you can pour that out. Pour it out for me, please, and just throw the thing away. Thank you. I appreciate it, Jonathan. All right. It is only thus that we know that the second King Ptolemy commissioned circa 270 BC an Egyptian priest whom the Greeks called Manetho, to compile the history and prehistory of Egypt. At first, Manetho wrote only the gods reigned there, then demigods, and finally, circa 3100 BC, Pharaonic, or the Pharaoh dynasties began. The Pharaonic dynasties began. You don't have to like separate the dishes because it's going to make too much noise. Just set them on the counter. I can get to it when I'm done. Thank you. The divine reigns, he wrote, began 10,000 years before the flood and continued for thousands of years thereafter, the latter period having witnessed battles and wars among the gods. In the Asiatic domains of Alexander, where reign fell into the hands of the general Seleucus and his successors, a similar effort to provide the Greek savants with a record of past events took place. A priest of the Babylonian god Marduk, Berosus, with access to libraries of clay tablets, whose core was the temple library of Haran, now in southeastern Turkey, wrote down in 3 volumes a history of gods and men that began 432,000 years before the deluge, when the gods came to earth from the heavens. Listing by name and reign durations the first 10 commanders, Berosus reported that the first leader, dressed as a fish, waded ashore from the sea. He was the one who gave mankind civilization, and his name, rendered in Greek, was Onanes. Oannes. So, Kimberly, shalom, shalom. This shouldn't sound so. Hold on, wait. Wait, hold on, Linda. What you say? I'm here shaking back like he can see me. I'm here shaking back like he can see me. Like who can? I missed your comment when it came up. What you talking about, Linda? Look. So if you're familiar with the book of Enoch, right, even the book of Genesis tells us, right, that the sons of God, we now know that the sons of God in church terminology would be the angels, right? The angels who came down to earth, right? They had to been somewhere. They came down from wherever they was at, right? They came down, had sex with human women. But in that, you probably get 2 sentences from Genesis, from the whole Bible, that talks about the angels or the watchers who came down, right? But if you read further in Enoch, it gives you more of the detail. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You was talking about my son when he came to wave. Okay. Okay, you said you shaking back, you waving back like he can see you. Okay, I get it. Okay. I completely missed that. So if you're, like I said, if you're familiar with the book of Enoch, and everybody, if you've been here for a while, if you never read through it, but if you were here when we read through it together, you're familiar with a lot of this stuff, right? So we know what some of the angels did. There were some intimate details of what different angels shared with the human wives that they took, right? They taught them incantations. They taught them the secrets of heaven. They taught them magic in exchange for them having sex with them, right? But there was some, at first I was like, okay, so they promised to do to teach them all these things if they would just have sex with them. But now my big toe is getting a little bit bigger. And it's not really just about the sex for real. It's not like, yo, come on, I need some of that human booty. I'm going to teach you some secrets of heaven. Just give me some of the human booty, right? It was really more than that. At first, my understanding was like, okay, but you're an angel though. Like, that's like really going beneath your class, your natural nature. It would seem like you're belittling yourself. What really could you gain by getting human booty, right? Like, you're an angel, you can do everything. Like, things we're trying to figure out how to do, like, you can do it. You can think and be somewhere. What is the big thing behind the angelic coming to have sex with human women? Now, some of you may have actually experienced it. You may have called it a wet dream, but some of you may have actually experienced it where an otherworldly, somebody not in physical matter reality, like we're considered physical matter reality. We know that there is non-physical matter reality that has truly had intercourse with human men and women, right? We know that happens even today. It's a whole group of people out there, they even on social media, and they on a hunt for angel booty, right? They on a hunt to have sex with ghosts. I kid you not. Like, it would be funny if it wasn't true, but it's true, and it baffles me, right? There were some crazy stories out there about what happens. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. I just listen, pay attention. So if you're familiar, I got off, not really off topic, but if you're familiar with the book of Enoch, this doesn't seem too far-fetched, right? Because if you believe the book of Enoch, some of this will help make a little more sense. And not just reading it, it'll probably make more sense to those who may have actually experienced. I know this might sound crazy to some people, but it has happened, right? In my early days, didn't know what it was, and I still don't know why it happened, right? But it can happen. So I know there is some truth to this based on my own personal living experiences in this life right now that I'm living. So I know this is not far-fetched from my personal experience. My big toe may be a little bit bigger than some, but I know this is true. Okay. Listen, in the Asiatic domains of Alexander, where reign fell into the hands of the general Seculos and his successors, a similar effort to provide the Greek savants with a record of past events took place. A priest of the Babylonian god Marduk, Berosus, with access to libraries of clay tablets, whose core was the temple library of Haran, now in southeastern Turkey, wrote down in 3 volumes a history of gods and men that began 432,000 years before the deluge. And when the gods came to, I'm reading that too fast. A priest of the Babylonian god Marduk, Berosus, with access to libraries of clay tablets, whose core was the temple library of Haran, now in southeastern Turkey, wrote down in 3 volumes a history of gods and men that began 432,000 years before the deluge, when the gods came to earth from the heavens, listing by name and reign durations the first 10 commanders. Berosus reported that the first leader, dressed as a fish, waded ashore from the sea. He was the one who gave mankind civilization, and his name, rendered in Greek, was Onanes. Dove-telling in many details, both priests thus render accounts of gods of heaven who came to earth, of a time when gods alone reigned on the earth, and of the catastrophic deluge. And the fragmentary bits and pieces retained in other contemporary writings from the 3 volumes, Berosus specifically reported the existence of writings from before the Great Flood, stone tablets that were hidden for safekeeping in an ancient city called Sippar, one of the original cities established by the ancient gods. Though Sippar, as were other pre-diluvial cities of the gods, was overwhelmed and obliterated by the deluge, a reference to the pre-diluvial writings surfaced in the annals of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, 668 through 633 BC. When archaeologists, I said that wrong, archaeologists, that's how you say it. When archaeologists in the mid-19th century found the ancient Assyrian capital Nineveh, until then known only from the Old Testament, they discovered in the ruins of Ashurbanipal's palace a library with the remains of some 25,000 inscribed clay tablets. An assiduous collector of olden texts, Ashurbanipal boasted in his annals, "The God of scribes has bestowed on me the gift of knowledge of his art. I have been initiated into the secrets of writing. I can even read the intricate tablets in Sumerian. I understand the enigmatic words in the stone carvings from the days before the flood." It is now known that the Sumerian or Sumerian civilization had blossomed in what is now Iraq almost a millennium before beginning of the Pharaonic age in Egypt, both to be followed later by the civilization of the Indus Valley in the Indian subcontinent. It is now also known that the Sumerians were the first to write down the annals and tales of gods and men, from which all other peoples, including the Hebrews, my people, including the Hebrews, listen to this, y'all. It is now also known that the Sumerians were the first to write down the annals and tales of gods and men, from which all other peoples, including the Hebrews, obtained the tales of creation, of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the deluge, and the Tower of Babel, and of the wars and loves of the gods, as reflected in the writings and recollections of the Greeks, Hittites, Canaanites, Persians, and Indo-Europeans. As all these olden writings attest, their sources were even earlier texts, some found, many lost. The volume of such early writings is staggering. Not thousands, but tens of thousands of clay tablets have been discovered in the ruins of the ancient Near East. Many deal with or record aspects of daily life, such as trade or workers' wages and nuptial marriage contracts, right? Others, found mostly in palace libraries, constitute royal annals. Still others, discovered in the ruins of temple libraries or of scribal schools, constitute a group of canonized texts, a secret literature that were written down in the Sumerian language and then translated to Akkadian, the first Semitic language, and then other ancient languages. And even in those early writings, going back almost 6,000 years, references are made to lost books, text inscribed on stone tablets. So you know how they call Hebrew one of the ancient languages? It is, but it comes from a more ancient language, from the Akkadian language. Matter of fact, it's Hebrew. I think it's Hebrew, Aramaic, and it's another one. It's three of them that come directly from the Akkadian language, right? We're going to get into it. Okay. And even in those early writings, going back almost 6,000 years, references are made to lost books, texts inscribed on stone tablets. Among the incredible, to say fortunate, does not fully convey the miracle. The miracle finds in the ruins of ancient cities and their libraries are clay prisms inscribed with the very information about the 10 pre-diluvial rulers and their 432,000 years total reign to which Barusos had referred, known as the Sumerian King List, and on display in the Ashmolean Museum, Oxford, England. Anybody in England, if that still exists, can y'all please go there? If y'all can take pictures, take pictures. We ain't gonna be able to share them on YouTube unless you got a community section. You gotta have at least 1,000 followers. Well, not necessarily 1,000. I think once you hit like 980, they open up the community section. But if y'all got community sections and you live in England and this library or museum still exists, please go take some pictures. Share them. Tag me, right? Because I can't get to England right now. So I'm depending on those who might be in that area who possibly may be watching this video. I'm just saying, we got to use all our resources. Everybody, wherever y'all, everybody got to be on the lookout for this stuff. We got to shake through the stuff that can be shaken. Keep what's good. Okay. Among the incredible, to say fortunate does not fully convey the miracle finds in the ruins of ancient cities and their libraries are clay prisms inscribed with the very information about the 10 pre-diluvial rulers and their 432,000 years total reign to which Berusus had referred, known as the Sumerian king list, and on display in the Ashmolean Museum, Ashmolean, Ashmolean Museum, Oxford, England. Their several versions leave no doubt that their Sumerian compilers had access to some earlier common or canonized textual material. Coupled with other equally early texts discovered in various states of preservation, they strongly suggest that the original recorder of the arrival, as well as of preceding events, and certainly of following events, had to be one of those leaders, a key participant, an eyewitness. One who had been an eyewitness to all those events, indeed a key participant to them, was the leader who had splashed down with the first group of astronauts, or the Anunnaki, or the Anunnaki, whatever you want to call them, those who came from heaven down to earth. At that time, his epithet name was Ea, he whose home is water. He experienced the disappointment of having command of Earth mission given to his half-brother and rival Enlil, and it's Enlil, Enlil, Lord, and it means Lord of the Command. A humiliation little mitigated by granting him the title Enki, E-N-K-I, or Enki, or Kai or Ki means earth, Lord of the earth. Enki means Lord of the earth, right? Pay attention. Let me go back. Y'all gotta pay attention. One who had been an eyewitness to all those events, indeed a key participant to them, was the leader who had splashed down with the first group of astronauts. At that time, his epithet was Ea, he whose home is water. He experienced the disappointment of having command of Earth mission given to his half-brother and rival Enlil, Lord of the Command, a humiliation little mitigated by granting him the title Enki, Lord of Earth. Relegated away from the cities of the gods and their spaceport in the Eden, E.D.I.N, and parentheses, it has what we know as Eden, E-D-E-N, Deborah, shalom, shalom. He experienced the disappointment of having command of Earth mission given to his half-brother and rival, Enlil, Lord of the Command, a humiliation little mitigated by granting him the title Enki, Lord of Earth. Relegated from the cities of the gods and their spaceport in the Eden to supervise the mining of gold in the Abzu, or southeastern Africa. That's what the Abzu is. A-B.Z-U, the Abzu. Tanya 3000, shalom. Okay. Relegated away from the cities of the gods and their spaceport in the Eden to supervise the mining of the gold in the Abzu, which is southeastern Africa, it was Ea, or Enki, a great scientist who came across the hominoids who inhabited those parts. And so when the Anunnaki, or the Anunnaki, toiling in the gold mines, mutinied and said no more, it was he who realized that the needed manpower could be obtained by jumping the gun on evolution through genetic engineering, and thus did the Adam, literally, he of the earth, earthling, came into being. As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record the second genetic As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record the second genetic manipulation by Enki that added the extra chromosomal genes needed for sexual procreation. And when mankind proliferating did not turn out the way it had been envisaged, it was he, Enki. Remember who Enki is? Lord of the earth, right? It was he, Enki, who defied his brother Enlil's plan to let mankind perish in the deluge. The events whose hero has been called Noah in the Bible and Zitusudra in the earlier original Sumerian text. So Zitusudra, when you hear Zitusudra, that's Noah. Okay, I read that one sentence again. I keep going. And when mankind proliferating did not turn out the way it had been envisaged, it was he, Enki, who defied his brother Enlil's plan to let mankind perish in the deluge. The events whose hero has been called Noah in the Bible and Zitusudra in the earlier original Sumerian text. The firstborn son of Anu, Nibiru's ruler, Ea or Enki, was well versed in his planets, Nibiru and its inhabitants past. An accomplished scientist, he bequeathed the most important aspects of the advanced knowledge of the Anunnaki, especially to his two sons, Marduk and Ningishita, who, as Egyptian gods, were known there as Ra and Thoth, respectively. But he also was instrumental in sharing with mankind certain aspects of such advanced knowledge by teaching to selected individuals the secrets of the gods. Is that what I'm saying, Dana? Keep listening to the story. Let me read y'all Dana's question. Dana asked, are you saying we were not created by Yah, but a completely different God? Before I answer that, I want y'all to think about what's in the scriptures. Really think about it. As we read through this and what you know, think about Jasher. Think about Jubilees. Think about the book of Enoch. All the information that you've learned up until this point, you need all them pieces of the puzzle on the table right now. I'm not going to give y'all straight answers. I need y'all to be thinking. I don't want y'all to think I'm putting any kind of images or thoughts into your mind. The questions y'all ask me, I'm going to start asking y'all questions in return, right? Let's get all the pieces. This is what we need to start bringing, all the pieces that we got. Everybody put their pieces on this table right now, because something is not adding up, right? Get the pieces. Start putting them on the table. Let's go. What you got back there? Put it up here. Everything. I don't care if you think it sounds crazy. Put it up here. We'll rule it out in a minute. But put everything here so we can see everything right now. That's how I feel. Listen. I ain't going to answer your question, Dana. We're going to answer it together. Right? Listen. And we still in the introduction. We ain't got some of these pieces yet, y'all. But I'm telling y'all, pay attention. Okay? Where'd I stop? Let me go back here. Okay. And when mankind proliferating did not... Oh, here's another piece we need to also... Before I go further. Here's a piece y'all need to make sure y'all keep on the table. Think about a lot of the experiments. I know we got people of different nationalities here. This is not being said to be racist or anything like that. But everybody has access to this information. I want you to think about some of the different... experiments and things that have been done on certain groups of people, how certain people's organs are taken, just different things. Think about the Melanin conferences they have every single year and how they study people who are full of melanin, and not necessarily melanin, but it's when you get down into it and you're paying attention, it's really the carbon that they're studying. They use melanin, they call it the melanin conferences and stuff, but it's really the carbon that they're studying in certain ones who have melanin, right? Okay. That's a piece that needs to be on this table. I need y'all also to remember Henrietta Lacks. We need to put Henrietta Lacks on this table as well, right? Everything. We need everything. Bombings, different things for different people. All of these are pieces to the big toe. Put all these pieces on the table. Leave nothing out. Mom, shalom. Christy, hey girl, hey. All right. As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record the second genetic... Hold on. I read that like too fast or slow. As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record... Forgive me, y'all. Hold on. Record. I'm about to say record. Okay. One more time. As a hybrid, the Adam could not procreate. The events echoed in the biblical tale of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden record the second genetic manipulation by Enki that added the extra chromosomal genes needed for sexual procreation. And when mankind proliferating did not turn out the way it had been envisaged, it was he, Enki, who defied his brother Enlil's plan to let mankind perish in a deluge. The events whose hero has been called Noah in the Bible and Zeusuda in the earlier original Sumerian text. The firstborn son of Anu, Nibiru's ruler, Ea or Enki, was well versed in his planet's Nibiru and its inhabitants' past. As accomplished scientist, he bequeathed the most important aspects of the advanced knowledge of the Anunnaki, especially to his two sons, Marduk and Ningushita, who as Egyptian gods were known there as Ra and Thoth, respectively. But he was also instrumental in sharing with mankind certain aspects of advanced knowledge by teaching to selected individuals the secrets of the gods. In at least 2 instances, such initiates wrote down, as they were instructed to do, those divine teachings as mankind's heritage. One called Adapa, and probably a son of Enki by a human female, is known to have written a book entitled Writings Regarding Time, one of the earliest lost books. The other, called Enmiduranki, was in all probability the prototype of the biblical Enoch, the one who was taken up to heaven after he had entrusted to his sons the book of divine secrets, and of which a version has possibly survived in the extra biblical book of Enoch. Campbell Mack, More Than One Creator. Let's keep reading and see, right? Let's think about this. We're not going to give answers. We all going to think about this together based on all the information. Let's keep... Y'all, I see y'all about to start throwing out a bunch of questions and we still in the intro. This is going to answer some of these questions y'all throwing out. But while we go along, keep Torah at the foremost of your mind and what Torah says, right? Torah, the other books we've been reading, Enoch, everything, all the stuff and things that we've tested and know to be true, right? Think about it. Think about it. If we have all these other gods and lords doing all of this, what did y'all do? Think about what the Torah was saying as well about these other gods and lords. Then that's why I say y'all got to take all the information. Think about it before you ask the questions, because the Bible is also referring to these other gods that the other nations were worshiping. They were there, right? But there is a bigger God, but there were other gods who were there. That's why I say y'all got to be paying attention to what the Bible is saying to y'all, because it's there in the Bible, right? Listen. One called Adapa, and probably a son of Enki by a human female, is known to have written a book titled Writings Regarding Time, one of the earliest lost books. The other, called Enmiduranki, was in all probability the prototype of the biblical Enoch, the one who was taken up to heaven after he had entrusted to his sons the book of divine secrets, and of which a version has possibly survived in the extra biblical book of Enoch. Though the firstborn of Anu, he was not destined to be his father's successor on the throne of Nibiru. Complex rules of succession, which reflected the convoluted history of the Nibirians, gave that privilege to Enki's half-brother Enlil. In the effort to resolve the bitter conflict, both Enki and Enlil ended up on a mission to an alien planet, Earth, whose goal was needed to create a shield for preserving Nibiru's dwindling atmosphere. Remember in the first few chapters, I think it was the first or the second chapter, when it was talking about the rivers, how they came out the 4 rivers, and they specifically pointed out one where the gold is found. Pay attention to all of this, y'all. Don't throw anything out until we look at all the information we got. We're going to shake through it together. In the effort to resolve the bitter conflict, hold on, I think I skipped. Hold on. Let me go back up. Though the firstborn of Anu, he was not destined to be his father's successor on the throne of Nibiru. Complex rules of succession, which reflected the convoluted history of the Nibiruans, gave that privilege to Enki's half-brother Enlil. In the effort to resolve the bitter conflict, both Enki and Enlil ended up on a mission to an alien planet, Earth, whose gold was needed to create a shield for preserving Nibiru's dwindling atmosphere. It was against that background, made even more complex by the presence on Earth of their half-sister Ningharsag, the chief medical officer of the Anunnaki, that Enki decided to defy Enlil's plan to have mankind perish in a deluge. The conflict carried on between the two half-brothers' sons, even among their grandchildren. The fact that all of them, and especially those born on Earth, faced the loss of longevity that Nibiru's extended orbital period provided, added personal agonies and sharpened ambitions. It all came to a climax in the last century of the 3rd millennium BC, when Marduk, Enki's firstborn by his official spouse, claimed that he, and not Enlil's firstborn son, Ninurta, should inherit the earth. The bitter conflict that included a series of wars, in the end, to the use of nuclear weapons, the ensuing unintended result was the demise of the Sumerian civilization. The initiation of chosen individuals into the secrets of the gods had marked the beginning of priesthood, the lineage of mediators between the gods and the people, the transmitters of the divine words to the mortal earthlings. Oracles, interpretations of divine utterances, were commingled with the observations of the heavens for omens. And as mankind was increasingly drawn to take sides in the godly conflicts, prophecy began to play a role. Indeed, the term to denote such spokesmen of the gods who proclaimed what was to come, Nabi, Nabih, which is like prophet, y'all. You probably don't see the H in it. You probably see Nabi, but that's like you hear it from some African Bantu people. They say Nabi is a Bantu term, right, or a Bantu word, but that was the term, Nabi. Indeed, the term to denote such spokesmen of the gods who proclaimed was to come, Nabi, was the epithet for Marduk's firstborn son, Nabu, who had tried on behalf of his exiled father to convince mankind that the heavenly signs bespoke the coming supremacy of Marduk. And we see that in the church, right? We call them Nabi or Nabis. You can look at churches now who call their prophets Nabis, right? Or prophets. Who are prophets? What do prophets do? What he just said. They relate messages from the unseen realm to the seen realm. They're the mediator between God and men, right? Okay. You on to something, Linda? Just hold that thought. We're gonna get into it, especially if you read We read it. Y'all probably had to go back and read it again or go back to when I was reading it. Like I said, everything we've learned, they're pieces of a bigger puzzle. Hold them so we can start putting them together. Linda said, in the book of Genesis in chapter 1, it said God created male and female. He created them. Then in chapter 2, it said the Lord God created Adam and breathed life into him, giving him a soul. So it has always seemed to me to be more than one God, although some say it's the same God. Hold that thought. Hold that thought, because we're going to get some clarity here, which we can kind of go back to the Bible and then begin to see. Because remember my earlier videos when I talked about where I was seeing, I was like, there are some inconsistencies between this God that's speaking. They say that you are saying this, and there's some things that they change the terms, the names, they use these general terms now. So they're referring to God, even though it may be multiple gods, they just put one term. So that's where we get all chopped and screwed. But I've read it so much that I began to notice the tone changes in the speaker who's speaking. I was like, now, y'all, they said you saying this, but this don't sound like you. It's a different type of tone, right? Y'all remember me saying that through here? Now this is beginning to make a little bit of sense with why they use general terms, because you will find out there are multiple people speaking throughout the Torah where they try to make it one monotheistic God, right? For one group of people, they change the God into one, and then they talk about the other gods of the other nations. So there are multiple gods in play here, even all through the Torah. We have to just put everything on the table to actually decipher who is who, right? Let's not fight over what we believe in this. Okay, let's verify. I'm at the point, let's verify what we believe. We need to break down everything. If this say this is Yah, we need to verify that this is truly Yah, right? So that's why we're reading some of the older things. So kind of hold your feelings and emotions at bay. We ain't trying to take your God away from you. We're just trying to get to the bottom of it and make sure that we are truly walking in complete truth and not just spirit, right? Because the Lord blesses us, right? We are to worship him in spirit and in truth, not spirit and ignorance, right? We're trying to get rid of all of the ignorance. So we need to verify. And I don't think it's bad that we put all the pieces on the table and begin to question everything. We need to verify this, right? Before we move any further. Everybody stop. That's what we're doing. So hold the emotions at bay. I know it's getting kind of, what? Hold on, this is black. Just hold it at bay while we pull the pieces of the puzzle out, y'all. Hold it at bay, okay? Okay? Okay. All right. Listen. Hold on. The initiation of chosen individuals into the secrets of the gods had marked the beginning of priesthood, the lineages of mediators between the gods and the people. Clearly, we know that we still practicing that today. We just talked about it, right? Okay. Prophets or nabis, the message giver. What you say from here? Okay, this is what he said, right? Okay. The initiation of chosen individuals into the secrets of the gods had marked the beginning of priesthood, the lineages of mediators between the gods and the people, the transmitters of the divine words to the mortal earthlings, oracles, interpretations of divine utterances were commingled with the observation of the heavens for omens. And as mankind was increasingly drawn to take sides in the godly conflicts, prophecy began to play a role. Indeed, the term to denote such spokesmen of the gods who proclaimed what was to come, Nabi, was the epithet for Marduk's firstborn son, Nabu, who had tried on behalf of his exiled father to convince mankind that the heavenly signs bespoke the coming supremacy of Marduk, which we kind of see, which is still kind of going on in Christianity today, right? Pay attention. Jen, shalom, shalom. Yes, real scientists question all things. We should question all things, so we're not led astray. When we don't ask questions, that's when we find ourselves inside of religious dogma, which we all have come out of. We're trying to stay out of that. We need to question everything. These developments sharpened the realization that one must distinguish between fate and destiny. The proclamations of Enlil, sometimes even of Anu, that used to be unquestioned, were now subjected to the scrutiny of the differences between Nam, N-A-M, Nam, a destiny like the planetary orbits, whose course had been determined and was unchangeable, and Namtar, N-A-M, period, T-A-R, Namtar, literally a destiny that could be bent, broken, changed, which was fate. Reviewing and recalling the sequence of events and the apparent parallelism between what had happened on Nibiru and what took place on Earth, Enki and Enlil began to ponder philosophically what indeed was destined and could not have been avoided, and what was just fated as a consequence of right or wrong decisions and free choice. If the latter could not be predicted, the former could be foreseen, especially if all, as the planetary orbits, was cyclical, if what was shall be again, if the first things shall also be the last things. The climactic event of the nuclear desolation sharpened soul searching among the leaders of the Anunnaki and raised the need to explain to the devastated human masses why it came to pass this way. Was it destined, or was it just the result of an Anunnaki-made fate? Was anyone responsible? Is there someone accountable? In the councils of the Anunnaki, on the eve of the calamity, it was Enki who stood alone in opposition to the use of forbidden weapons. It was thus important for Enki to explain to the suffering remnants how that turning point in the saga of extraterrestrials who had meant well but ended as destroyers had come to pass. And who but Ea/Enki, who was the first to come and an eyewitness to it all, was most qualified to tell the past so that the future could be divine. And the best way to tell it all was a first-person report by Enki himself. That he had recorded his autobiography is certain, for a long text stretching over at least 12 tablets discovered in the library of Nippur quotes Enki as saying, "When I approached Earth, there was much flooding. When I neared its green meadows, heaps and mounds were piled up at my command. In a pure place I built my house, an appropriate name I gave it." The long text continues to describe how Ea or Enki then assigned tasks to his lieutenants, putting their mission to Earth in motion. Numerous other texts that relate varied aspects of Enki's role in the ensuing developments serve to complete Enki's tale. They include a cosmology, an epic of creation, at whose core lay Enki's own text, which scholars call the Iridu Genesis. Yesal Shalom. Have y'all seen that? Y'all can probably Google. It's called the Iridu Genesis, and I shared a short clip a couple weeks ago. In the community section, you will see it. I think it was like the History Channel or something. One of them channels, history or whatever, scientific channels. But it has the Iridu Genesis. And it has like a short little snippet from that particular tablet. But that was from the Babylonian Iridu, which was also taken from the Sumerian text, right? And you can see the similarities between that and what they pulled and created the Bible with. So check that out if you haven't, or go Google it in YouTube or something and look up the Iridu Genesis. Check into it. That's a piece of the puzzle too. We're going to get to it. Okay. Numerous other texts that relate varied aspects of Enki's role in ensuing developments serve to complete Enki's tale. They include a cosmology, an epic of creation, at whose core lay Enki's own text, which scholars call the Iridu Genesis. They include detailed descriptions of the fashioning of Adam. They describe how other Anunnaki, male and female, came to Enki in his city Iridu to obtain from him the M.E., a kind of data disk that encoded all aspects of civilization, and they include texts of Enki's private life and personal problems, such as the tale of his attempts to attain a son by his half-sister Ninharsag, his promiscuous affairs with both goddesses and the daughters of man, and the unforeseen consequences thereof. The Atrahasis, remember that book, go look that up too. The Atrahasis text throws light on Anu's efforts to prevent a flare-up of the Enki-Enlil rivalries in Christianity. I think we can rightfully say the rivals between Enki and Enlil would be the stories that we hear between God and Satan, or Jesus and Satan, because a lot of people still recognize Jesus as God. So it's still this good and evil aspect, right? So you'll see how this also has been developed from the Enlil and Enki rivalry, right? God and Satan. Keep it all together. Pay attention. Hold the pieces. Put them on the table. Let's all look at them. The Atrahasis text throws light on Anu's efforts to prevent a flare-up of the Enki-Enlil rivalries by dividing Earth's domains between them, and texts recording the events preceding the deluge render almost verbatim the debates in the Council of the Gods about the fate of mankind and Enki's subterfuge known as the Tale of Noah and the Ark, a tale known only from the Bible until one of its original Mesopotamian versions was found in the tablets of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now that might kind of give away a little bit of the homework I gave y'all, and I told y'all go read or listen to the Epic of Gilgamesh and tell me, who does that remind you of in the Bible? It's somebody in the Bible. In different texts, it's called the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Yes. I'm going to read the sentence again. Where we at? Hour and 47 minutes. Let me see how much more we got in this. Oh, shoot. We got like a half a page left. Okay. I'm going to ask y'all. Okay. I ask you when I get done. Okay. The Atrahasis text throws light on Anu's efforts to prevent a flare-up of the Enki-Enlil rivalries by dividing Earth's domains between them, and texts recording the events preceding the deluge render almost verbatim the debates in the Council of the Gods about the fate of mankind and Enki's subterfuge known as the Tale of Noah and the Ark, a tale known only from the Bible until one of its original Mesopotamian versions was found in the tablets of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets, Babylonian and Assyrian temple libraries, Egyptian, Hittite, and Canaanite myths, and the biblical narratives are the main body of written down memories of the affairs of gods and men. For the first time ever, this dispersed and fragmented material has been assembled and used by Zecharia Sitchin to recreate the eyewitness account of Enki, the autobiographical memoirs and insightful prophecies of an extraterrestrial god. Remember, extraterrestrial is simply those who are not human, right? Presented as a text dictated by Enki to a chosen scribe, a book of witnessing to be unsealed at an appropriate time, it brings to mind Yahweh's instructions to the prophet Isaiah, 7th century BC. Quote, "Now come, write it on a sealed tablet as a book, engrave it. Let it be a witnessing until the last day, a testimony for all time. And that can be found in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 8. Right? End quote. In dealing with the past, Enki himself perceived the future. The notion that the Anunnaki, exercising free will, were masters of their own fates, as well as the fate of mankind, gave way in the end to a realization that it was destiny that, when all was said and done, determined the course of events, and therefore, as the Hebrew prophets had recognized, the first things shall be the last things. The record of events dictated by Enki thus becomes a foundation for prophecy, and the past becomes the future. So that was the end of the introduction. So what we have next is the attestation, which is, they got like this, well, it's not really the tablet, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half pages, and they're not really full, so I would say three, we'll make it 4 pages with the portion of the first and the last. Do y'all want to read this attestation? I can probably get through it in 10 minutes. Mom. But then we'll pause. Mom. Yes, babe. Yeah, give me a minute. Then we'll pause, and tomorrow we'll actually start in the tablets. Y'all want me to read the attestation today? Joy, you got it right. It's Noah. But if y'all haven't listened to the Epic of Gilgamesh, go listen to it or go read it. You'll probably get through it a lot faster if you listen to it. I've listened to it. You can just Google it, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and YouTube it in the search engine. I keep saying Google. But it'll pop up, and it's a little bit over an hour long, right? You should listen to it and compare. Read, okay, Jen, first on Wednesday. Hardhead Nardo. Oh, yeah, I read about that Enki and Enlil story. Really interesting. Reminds me of Jacob and Esau. Well, you might want to stay tuned. Oh, y'all want to stay tuned. Please don't leave class early, y'all, while we're pulling all these pieces of the puzzle together. No, if it goes with the text. Hold on. No, if it goes with the text. Mom, you're not what you mean, Dana? Don't let one Hey, bye, y'all. Go on. Ain't nobody getting on my laptop. Bye. Get out. What's that? Jonathan. Okay. Attestation. We're going to read it. Okay. Attestation. This is on page 11. The words of Indubsar, master scribe, son of Iridu city, servant of the Lord Enki, great God. Oh, let me just say something real quick. When it gets to Marduk and they celebrated his son, the son of God. They worshiped him, and they list out all the 50 names that they would refer to him as. And y'all gonna want to spit on the ground when y'all realize y'all been calling some of these names that they have attributed to the son of this particular god, Marduk. Just hold on. Y'all stop, leave him alone. Joshua. Josh.
He's sitting in my chair. It's not really yours.
It's not yours either. It's mine. Y'all stop it. Attestation. The words of Indubsar, master scribe, son of Iridu city, servant of the Lord Enki, great God, dark night, Shalom. In the 17th year after the great calamity, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day, I was summoned by my master, the Lord Enki, great God, benevolent fashioner of mankind, omnipotent and merciful. I was among the remnants of Iridu who had escaped to the arid steppe, just as the evil wind was nearing the city. And I wandered off into the wilderness to seek withered twigs for firewood. And I looked up, and lo, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the south. There was a reddish brilliance about it, and it made no sound. And as it reached the ground, 4 straight feet spread out from its belly, and the brilliance disappeared. And I threw myself to the ground and prostrated myself, for I knew that it was a divine vision. And when I lifted my eyes, there were 2 divine emissaries standing near me, and they had the faces of men, and their garments were sparkling like burnished brass. And they called me by name and spoke to me, saying, You are summoned by the great God, the Lord Enki. Fear not, for you are blessed. And we are here to take you aloft and to carry you unto his retreat in the land of Magan, on the island amidst the river of Magan, where the sluices are. And as they spoke, a whirlwind lifted itself as a fiery chariot and was gone. And they took me by my hands, each one grasping me by one hand. And they lifted me and carried me swiftly between the earth and the heavens as the eagle soars. And I could see the land and the waters and the plains and the mountains. And they let me down on the island at the gateway of the great God's abode. And the moment they let go of my hands, a brilliance as I had never seen before engulfed and overwhelmed me, and I collapsed on the ground as though void of the spirit of life. My life senses returned to me, as if I awakened from the deepest sleep by the sound of the calling of my name. Well, actually, so if it is the synopsis intro to the tablets we'll be reading tomorrow. Oh, I see what you're saying. Not if it goes with the text. Okay, so I already started reading. This is actually a part of the what the scribe wrote that they found in the tablet. So this is the words of the scribe. But when it gets to the words of the Lord Enki, then we'll see the synopsis. Then it goes to the first tablet. So this is kind of like the words of what happened to the scribe, the one who was penning this information as the God was telling him what was happening. So he's telling you what happened to him and how he became the scribe of this God. Okay, so and y'all tell me. I think the first tablet is. Hold on, let me just look. I know it's Saturday though, y'all. Y'all can let me know though. Let me see how long the first tablet is. If I can remember, like page wise, because I didn't listen to it. Oh yeah, I don't know. Okay, the first tablet goes up to page 39. I mean, y'all let me know. It's Saturday. I mean, if y'all want to go, but right now we on page 12. We could, if y'all want to. It's gonna make this video extremely long, but y'all let me know. I mean, I got the time. We ain't doing nothing. It's snow outside. I don't mind. If y'all want to, y'all just let me know. Just think about it. We'll see where we at once we get done in a few minutes with this attestation. Okay. And they let me down on the island at the gateway of the great God's abode. And the moment they let go of my hands, a brilliance as I had never seen before engulfed and overwhelmed me, and I collapsed on the ground as though voided of the spirit of life. My life senses returned to me as if I awakened from the deepest sleep by the sound of the calling of my name. I was in some kind of an enclosure. It was dark, but there was also an aura. Then my name was called again by the deepest of voices, and although I could hear it, I could not tell whence the voice came, nor could I see whoever it was that spoke. And I said, Here I am. Then the voice said to me, Indubsar, offspring of Adapa, I have chosen you to be my scribe, that you write down my words on the tablets. And all at once there appeared a glowing in one part of the enclosure. And I saw a place arranged like a scribal workplace, a scribe's table and a scribe's stool, and there were finely shapen stones upon the table. But I saw no clay tablets, nor containers of wet clay. And there lay upon the table only one stylus, and it glistened in the glowing as no reed or stylus ever did. And the voice spoke up again, saying, Indubsar, son of Iridu city, my faithful servant, I am your Lord Enki. I have summoned you to write down my words, for I am much distraught by what has befallen mankind by the great calamity. It is my wish to record the true course of events, to let gods and men alike know that my hands are clean. Not since the great deluge has such a calamity befallen the earth and the gods and the earthlings. But the great deluge was destined to happen, not so the great calamity. This one, 7 years ago, need not have happened. If it could have been prevented, and I, Enki, did all I could to prevent it, alas, I failed. And it was fate. And was it fate or was it destiny? In the future shall it be judged, for at the end of days a day of judgment there shall be. On that day the earth shall quake, and the rivers shall change course, and there shall be darkness at noon, and fire in the heavens in the night. The day of the returning celestial God it will be. What it sound like to y'all? Where have we read that in the Bible? We've read it in the books of the prophets, and we've also read it in the book of Revelation, which we know was some of the information in Revelation was taken from the books of the prophets, right? The books of the prophets were taken from earlier texts. I'm going to read that again. Just pay attention. It could have been prevented, and I, Enki, did all I could to prevent it. Alas, I failed. And was it fate or was it destiny? In the future shall it be judged, for at the end of days a day of judgment there shall be. On that day the earth shall quake, and the rivers shall change course, and there shall be darkness at noon, and a fire in the heavens in the night. The day of the returning celestial God it will be. And who shall survive, and who would perish? Who shall be rewarded, and who will be punished? Gods and men alike. On that day shall it be discovered, for what shall come to pass by what had passed shall be determined, and what was destined shall in a cycle be repeated, and what was fated and only by the hearts will occurring for good or ill shall for judgment come. Bella, turn it down a little bit, please.
Mom!
Well, open it up and take a piece, Tootie. Go ahead. But you need to pause that while you're in here because it's too loud. Pause that, then go ahead and get a piece.
Mom.
Can you open it? Sorry, come pop this open for her.
No, I got it.
Okay, well, turn it down, girl. Turn it down first. Turn it down first. Yep. A little bit more. Thank you. Sorry, y'all. Okay. The voice fell silent. Then the great Lord spoke up again, saying, "It is for this reason that I will tell the true account of the beginnings and of the prior times and of the olden times. For in the past..."
No, please.
Saya, come get her a saucer, please. Hold on.
Mom, I mean not that.
Tootie, I'm going to send you upstairs. You're too loud.
I mean, no, please stop.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. The voice fell silent. Then the great Lord spoke up again, saying, "It is for this reason that I will tell the true account of the beginnings and of the prior times and of the olden times. For in the past, the future lies hidden. For 40 days and 40 nights shall I speak to you, and you will write. 40 shall be the count of the days and the nights of your task here. For 40 is my sacred number among the gods. For 40 days and 40 nights you shall neither eat nor drink. Only this once of bread and water you shall partake, and it shall sustain you for the duration of your task." Once the voice paused, and all at once there appeared a glowing in another part of the enclosure. And I saw a table, and upon it a plate and a cup. And I rose up thereto, and there was bread on the plate and water in the cup. And the voice of the great Lord Enki spoke up again, saying, "Indusar, eat the bread and drink the water, and be sustained for 40 days and 40 nights." And I did as directed. And thereafter the voice directed me to sit myself at the scribal table, and the glowing there intensified. I could see neither door nor aperture where I was, yet the glowing was as strong as the midday sun. And the voice said, Indubsir the scribe, what do you see? And I looked and saw the glowing ray upon the table and the stones and the stylus. And I said, I see stone tablets, and their hue is blue, as pure as the sky. And I see a stylus as I have never seen before, its stem unlike any reed, and its tip shaped like an eagle's talon. And the voice said, these are the tablets upon which you shall inscribe my words. By my wish they have been cut of the finest lapis lazuli, each with 2 smooth faces provided. I did tell her she could get a piece.
Well, she got 2.
Would you get 2? Would you get 2?
You said.
Would you get 2? Leave her alone. Leave her. Leave her alone.
A piece.
Well, when you come in here and get a piece, you get a piece, and you better only put 1 on your place. Since you want to tell me what a piece is, I know what she got. Who they be plucking my nerves sometimes. Okay, but it's Saturday, whatever. And the voice said, these are the tablets upon which you shall inscribe my words. By my wish they have been cut from the finest lapis lazuli, each with 2 smooth faces provided. And the stylus you see is God's hand. Oh, no. And the stylus you see is a God's handiwork, its handle made of electrum, and its tip of divine crystal. It shall firmly fit in your hand, and what you shall engrave with it shall be as easy as marking upon wet clay. In 2 columns you shall inscribe the front face, and in 2 columns you shall inscribe the back of each stone tablet. Do not deviate from my words and utterances. And there was a pausing, and I touched one of the stones, and the surface thereof felt like a smooth skin, soft to the touch. And I picked up the holy stylus, and it felt like a feather in my hand. And then the great god Enki began to speak, and I began to write down his words, exactly as he had spoken them. At times his voice was strong, at times almost a whisper. At times there was joy or pride in his voice, at times pain or agony. And as one tablet was inscribed on all of its faces, I took another to continue. And when the final words were spoken, the great God paused, and I could hear a great sigh. And he said, Indubsar, my servant, for 40 days and 40 nights you have faithfully recorded my words. Your task here is completed. Now take hold of another tablet, and on it you shall write your own attestation, and that the end thereof as a witness, mark with your seal, and take the tablet and put it together with the other tablets in the divine chest. For at a designated time chosen, ones shall come hither, and they shall find the chest and the tablets, and they shall learn all that I have dictated to you, and that true account of the beginnings and the prior times and the olden times and the great calamity shall henceforth be known as the words of the Lord Enki. And it shall be a book of witnessing of the past, and a book of foretelling the future, for the future in the past lies, and the first things shall also be the last things. And there was a pause, and I took the tablets and put them one by one in their correct order in the chest. And the chest was made of acacia wood, and it was inlaid with gold on the outside. What that sound like? And the voice of my Lord said, now close the chest cover and fasten its lock. And I did as directed. And there was another pause, and my Lord Enki said, and as for you, Indubsar, with a great God you have spoken, and though you have not seen me, in my presence you have been. Therefore you are blessed, and my spokesman to all the people you shall be. You shall admonish them to be righteous, for in that lies a good long life. And you shall comfort them, For in 70 years the cities will be rebuilt, and the crops shall sprout again. There will be peace, but there will also be wars. New nations will become mighty. Kingdoms shall rise and fall. The olden gods shall step aside, and new gods shall decree the fates. But at the end of days, destiny shall prevail, and of that future it is foretold in my words about the past. Of all that, Endupsar, to the people you shall tell. And there was a pause and a silence. And I, Endupsar, bowed to the ground and said, but how will I know what to say? It sounds familiar. But how will I know what to say? And the voice of the Lord Enki said, the signs will be in the heavens, and the words to utter shall come to you in dreams and in visions. And after you there, okay, I'm reading it like too slow. And after you, there will be other chosen prophets. And in the end, there will be a new earth and a new heaven. And for prophets, there will be no more need. And then there was silence, and the auras were extinguished, and the spirit left me. And when I regained my senses, I was in the fields outside Iridu. And that's the end. That's the seal of Endupsar, master scribe. So now that is the attestation, which the Lord Enki told him, after you finish translating all these tablets, I want you to take another tablet and you write what you experienced. And you put that at the beginning of all the tablets, right? Okay. So that's where we at. We're at 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Mom!
The next begins the actual
Mom!
tablets.
Mom, what you done? I just made this for the hotel. No. What?
Well, Tootie, we're not going to the hotel today because it snowed last night. We changed the reservations to next weekend. So we can wash it over and you can put it back in your bag. Okay? She's
I
so
cannot wash
bossy.
this.
Well, you ain't gonna wash it. I'm gonna wash it. Okay, so let me know what y'all want to do. The Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so what y'all want to do? We on page. If you want to go ahead and read through the first tablet, I'm all game for it. I got the time. It's Saturday. We ain't got nowhere to go with snow on the ground, right? We can read the synopsis and the first tablet. Y'all let me know. First answer. Keep reading. Okay, Kimber Mack. Let's go. Okay. If y'all gotta go, it's recorded and just come back here later, okay? But we're gonna read on. First answer wins. Synopsis of the first tablet. Home with Jen. Okay, we reading. Synopsis of the first tablet. Lamentation over the desolation of Sumer. How the gods fled their cities as the nuclear cloud spread. The debates in the council of the gods. The fateful decision to unleash the weapons of terror. The origin of the gods and the awesome weapons on Nibiru. Nibiru's north-south wars. Unification and dynastic rules. Nibiru's place in our solar system. A dwindling atmosphere causes climate changes. Efforts to obtain gold to shield the atmosphere fail. Alalu, a usurper, uses nuclear weapons to stir volcanic gases. Anu, a dynastic heir, deposes Alalu. Alalu steals a spacecraft and escapes from Nibiru. Okay. And so there's depictions of Nibiru as a radiant planet, right? So that's kind of what, if you look close, if you have a telescope, I'm not telling y'all got to go buy all this equipment, right? Because I do a lot of research and I have telescopes and stuff like I do because I'm trying to get to the bottom of some of this stuff. And before too long, we're going to put a satellite up in the sky. That's how serious I am about finding out the truth about what's really going on. Let's see exactly what shenanigans NASA is up to. You need to process data. Okay, come back later. All right, so listen. Okay, so that's the synopsis. Just a really quick summation of everything that they're going to cover here. Okay, all right. The first tablet. The words of the Lord Enki, firstborn son of Anu, who reigns on Nibiru. With heavy spirit, I utter laments. Laments that are bitter fill my heart. How smitten is the land, its people delivered to the evil wind, its stables abandoned, its sheepfolds empty. Hey guys, calm down a little bit. You too loud. Joshua, Josiah, Isaiah, Jonathan, and Bella. Calm down. Bella. Yes. Joshua. Stop it. Okay. The first tablet. The words of the Lord Enki, firstborn son of Anu, who reigns on the Nibiru. With heavy spirit I utter laments. Laments that are bitter fill my heart. How smitten is the land, its people delivered to the evil wind, its stables abandoned, its sheepfolds empty. How smitten are the cities, their people piled up as dead corpses, afflicted by the evil wind. How smitten are the fields, their vegetation withered, touched by the evil wind. How smitten are the rivers, nothing swims anymore. Pure sparkling waters turned into poison. Of its black-headed people, Sumer is empty, gone of all life. Of its cattle and sheep, Sumer is empty, silent in the hum of churning milk. In its glorious cities, only the wind howls. Death is the only smell. The temples, whose heads to heaven arose by their gods, have been abandoned. Of lordship and kingship, command there is none. Scepter and tiara are gone. Scepter and tiara, male and female, right? Of lordship and kingship, command there is none. Scepter and tiara are gone. On the banks of the two great rivers, once lush and life-giving, only weeds grow. No one treads the highways, no one seeks out the roads. Flourishing Sumer is like an abandoned desert, house smitten in the land, home of the gods and men. On that land a calamity fell, one unknown to man, a calamity that mankind had never before seen, one that could not be withstood. On all the lands from west to east, a disruptive hand of terror was placed. The gods in their cities were helpless as men. Though you were gods, you would die like men. An evil wind, a storm born in a distant plain, a great calamity wrought in its path. A death-dealing wind born in the west, in its way to the east, has made its course set by fate. A storm devouring as the deluge, by wind and not by water, a destroyer, by poison air, not tidal waves overwhelming. By fate, not destiny, was it engendered. The great gods, in their council, the great calamity had caused. By Enlil and Ninhushag, it was permitted. I alone for a halt was beseeching, meaning he was against what was about to happen on the earth. Enlil said he was, I'm not Enlil, hold on. Enki said he was the one who was against what was about to take place on the earth, right? Day and night to accept what the heavens decree, I argued to no avail. Ninurta, Enlil's warrior son, and Nergal, my very own son, positioned weapons in the great plain, then unleashed. That an evil wind shall follow the brilliance we knew not, they now cry in agony. That the death-dealing storm, born in the west, its course to the east shall make. Who could foretell? The gods now bemoan. In their holy cities, the gods stood disbelieving as the evil wind toward Sumer made its way. One after another, the gods fled their cities, their temples abandoned to the wind. In my city, Iridu, as the poisoned cloud approached, I could do nothing to stop it. Escape to the open steppe, to the people I gave instructions. With Enki, my spouse, the city I abandoned. In his city, Nippur, the place of the bond, heaven, earth, Enlil could do nothing to stop it. The evil wind against Nippur was onrushing. In his celestial boat, Enlil and his spouse hurriedly took off. In Sumer's city of kingship, Nanar to his father Enlil for help cried. Okay, So as they translated, by now you can probably tell that as they translated it, it's not like how we would put sentences today in the English language, right? So like, I'm going to the store. It would be how I would say it in English, I'm going to the store. But here, the way it's translated and written is kind of like backwards almost. So it says, to the store I went, or to the store I go. Y'all get it? Okay, so pay attention to it now. So this is how they just translated it just like that instead of putting it in a proper English sentence form, but you can still understand it. In the Schumer's city of kingship, Nanar to his father Enlil for help cried. In the place of the temple that to heaven in 7 step rises, Nanar, the hand of fate, refused to heed. My father, who begat me, great God, who to had granted kingship, turned the evil wind away, Nanar pleaded. Also, if you use one of the Bible apps, like what is the one? I'm about to call it the Blue Light Bible. But anyway, if you go in there where you can look at the references and the etymology, you will notice if you go and you look at the languages, the etymology will show you what it is in Hebrew or whatever language it is. And as they translate it to the English that we understand, you will see that it's translated just like this is translated. It's kind of like backwards. To the store, Pam went. Instead of saying Pam went to the store, it's choppy, but it looks just like that. If you're familiar with doing the research on words and etymology of sentences, I, they, go, come. Yeah. Right. Like that. Okay, so that's why I understood. At first I was like, why are they reading it like this? They reading it like the etymology things that I researched. But then I realized it's a translation, and they just left it just like that. Okay. Just in case y'all not familiar with doing the research on the etymology of stuff, right? Okay. In the place of the temple that to heaven in 7 step rises, Nanar, the hand of fate, refused to heed. My father, who begat me, great God, who to had granted kingship, turned the evil wind away, Nanar pleaded. Great God, who decrees the fates, let and its people be spared. Your praises to continue, Nanar appeared. Enlil answered his son Nanar, noble son, your wondrous city, kingship was granted. Eternal reign, it was not granted. Take hold of your spouse, Ningal, flee the city. Even I who decree fates, its destiny I cannot bend. Thus did Enlil, my brother, speak. Alas, alas, not a destiny it was. A calamity, none greater. Since the deluge, gods and earthlings has befalling, alas, not a destiny it was. The great deluge was destined to happen. The great calamity of the death-dealing storm was not. By the breach of a vow, by a council decision it was caused. By weapons of terror it was created. By a decision, not destiny, were the poisoned weapons unleashed. By deliberation was the lost cast. Against Marduk, my firstborn, did the 2 sons destruction direct. Vengeance was in their hearts. Ascendancy is not Marduk's to grasp. Enlil's firstborn shouted. With weapons I shall oppose him, Ninurta said. Of people he raised an army. Babylon as earth's navel to declare. Babylon is Babylon, right? The navel, they call Babylon the navel of the earth. But in other places, you will see that they call in other places the navel of the earth. But kind of get all the information together because it all makes sense. It's a part of the bigger puzzle. Of people he raised an army. Babylon as earth's navel to declare. Nergal, Marduk's brother, so shouted. In the council of the great gods, words of venom were spread. Day and night I raised my opposing voice. Peace I counseled, deploring haste. For the second time the people have raised his heavenly image. Why does opposing continue? I asked in pleading. Have all the instruments been checked? Did not the era of Marduk in the heavens arrive? I once more inquired. Ningishita, my very own son, other signs of heaven sighted. His heart, I knew, Marduk's injustice to him could not forgive. Nanar to Enlil, on earth born, was unrelenting too. Marduk, my temple in the north city, his own abode made. So he said, Ishkar, Enlil's youngest, punishment demanded. In my lands to whore after him the people he made, he said. Uta, son of Nanar, at Marduk's son Nabu, his wrath directed. The place of the celestial chariots he tried to seize. Inanna, twin of Utu, was furious of all. The punishment of Marduk for the killing of her beloved Dumuzi she still demanded. Ningarsag, mother of gods and men, her gaze diverted. Why is not Marduk here? She only said. Gibble, my own son, with gloom replied, Marduk has all entreaties put aside. By the signs of heaven, his supremacy he claims. Only with weapons will Marduk be stopped. Ninurta, Enlil's firstborn, shouted. Uta, about protecting the place of the celestial chariots, was concerned. In Marduk's hands it must not fall, so he said. Nergal, lord of the lower domain, ferocity was demanding. Let the olden weapons of terror for obliteration be used. At my own son I gazed in disbelief, for brother against brother, the terror weapons have been forsworn. Instead of consent, there was silence. In the silence, Enlil opened his mouth. Punishment there must be. Like birds without wings, the evildoers shall be. Marduk and Nabu, us of heritage are depriving. Let them of the place of the celestial chariots be deprived. Let the place be scorched to oblivion, Ninurta shouted. The one who scorches, let me be. Excited, Nergal stood up and shouted, let the evildoers' cities also be upheavaled. The sinning cities, let me obliterate. Let the annihilator, my name, thereafter be. The earthlings, by us created, must not be harmed. The righteous with the sinners must not be perished, I forcefully said. Think about it. Remember Abraham, will you destroy it even if there are 50 righteous? Not if I can find 50 righteous. It's an abominable thing to destroy the righteous with the sinners. The sinning cities, let me obliterate. Let the annihilator, my name, be thereafter. The earthlings, by us created, must not be harmed. The righteous with the sinners must not be perished. I forcefully said. Ningharsag, my creating helpmate, was consenting. The matter is between the gods alone to settle. The people must not be harmed. Anu, from the celestial abode to the discussions, was giving much heed. Anu, who determines fates, from his celestial abode, his voice made heard. Let the weapons of terror be this once used. Let the place of the rocket ships be obliterated. Let the people be spared. Let Ninurta the scorcher be. Let Nergal the Let Ninurta be. Let Ninurta the scorcher be. Let Nergal be the annihilator. So did Enlil the decision announce. To them, a secret of the gods I shall reveal. The hiding place of the terror weapons to them I shall disclose. The two sons, one mine, one his, to his inner chamber Enlil summoned. Nergal, as he went by me, his gaze averted. Alas, I cried out without words. Brother has turned against brother. Are the prior times fated to repeat? A secret from the olden times, to them Enlil was revealing, the weapons of terror to their hands entrusting. Clad with terror, With a brilliance they are unleashed. All they touch to a dust heap they turn. Clad with terror, with a brilliance they are unleashed. All they touched to a dust heap they turn. Think about Sodom and Gomorrah. For brother against brother on earth, they are forsworn, neither region to affect. Now the oath was undone, like a broken jar in useless pieces. The two sons, full of glee, with quickened step from Enlil's chamber emerged, for the weapons departing. The other gods turned back to their cities. None of his own calamities had a foreboding. Now this is the account of the prior times and of the weapons of terror. Before the prior times was the beginning. After the prior times were the olden times. In the olden times, the gods came to earth and created the earthlings. In the prior times, none of the gods was on the earth, nor were the earthlings yet fashioned. In the prior times, the abode of the gods was on their own planet. Nibiru is its name. A great planet, reddish in radiance around the sun, an elongated circuit Nibiru makes. For a time in the cold is Nibiru engulfed, for part of its circuit by the sun strongly is it heated. A thick atmosphere Nibiru envelops, by volcanic eruptions constantly fed. All manner of life this atmosphere sustains. Without it, there will be only perishing. In the cold period, the inner heat of Nibiru keeps it about the planet like a warm coat that is constantly renewed. In the hot period, it shields Nibiru from the sun's scorching rays. In its midst reigns it holds and releases to lakes and streams, giving rise. Lush vegetation, our atmosphere feeds and protects all manner of life in the waters and on the land to sprout it caused. After eons of time, our own species sprouted by our own essence an eternal seed to procreate. As our numbers grew, to many regions of Nibiru our ancestors spread. Some tilled the land, some four-legged creatures shepherded, some lived on the mountains, some in the valleys in their home made. Rivalries occurred, encroachments happened, clashes occurred, sticks became weapons. Clans gathered into tribes, then two great nations each other faced. The nation of the north against the nation of the south took up arms. What was held by hand to thrusting missiles was turned. Weapons of thunder and brilliance increased the terror. A war, long and fierce, engulfed the planet, brother amassed against brother. There was death and destruction, both north and south. For many circuits, desolation reigned the land. All life was diminished. Then a truce was declared. Then peacemaking was conducted. Let the nations be united, the emissaries said to one another. Let there be one throne on Nibiru, one king to reign over all. Let a leader from the north or from the south by lot be chosen, one king supreme to be. If he be from the north, let south choose a female to be his spouse, as equal queen to reign alongside. If lot by south male be chosen, let the north's female be his spouse. Husband and wife, let them be as one flesh to become. Let their firstborn son be the successor. Let a unified dynasty thus be formed, unity on Nibiru forever to establish. In the midst of the ruins, peace was started. North and south by marriage were united. Think about the book of Daniel, the north and the south. All of that, he'll give a wife. Remember, all of that. Think about everything. Got to keep everything together. The royal throne into one flesh combined, an unbroken line of kingship established. The first king after peace was made. A warrior of the north he was, a mighty commander. By lots, true and fair was he chosen. His decrees in unity were accepted. For his abode he built a splendid city. Agade, unity meaning, was its name. For his reign, a royal title he was granted. And it was the celestial one was its meaning. And A-N. That's what it was. And A-N. A-N or and it was the celestial one was its meaning. With strong arm, order in the lands he reestablished, laws and regulations he decreed. Governors for each land he appointed. Restoration and reclamation was their foremost task. Of him in the royal annals, thus it was recorded. And the lands unified, peace on Nibiru he restored. He built a new city, the canals he repaired, food to the people he provided. There was abundance in the lands. For his spouse, the south, a maiden had chosen. For both love and warring she was noted. And too was her royal title, the leader who is Anne's spouse. The given name cleverly did it. And to A-N period 2. That's how you know they're the spouse of the god. It's the two names added together. Like what you see people doing now, adding the husband and the wife name together, making it one term. That's what they did. And 2. His name, the king of the north. Was it the king of the north? The king of the north. Yeah, the king of the north, his name was Anne. The queen of the south name was Tu. You got the king from here, pair him with the queen of the south, and Tu shall be their name. And Tu, that was the name of this particular husband-wife duo, right? Okay. With strong arm, order in the lands he reestablished, laws and regulations he decreed. Governors for each land he appointed. Restoration and reclamation was their foremost task. Of him in the royal annals, thus it was recorded. And the lands unified, peace on Nibiru he restored. He built a new city, the canals he repaired, food to the people he provided. There was abundance in the lands. For his spouse, the south, a maiden had chosen. For both love and warring she was noted. And too was her royal title, the leader who is Anne's spouse. The given name cleverly did mean. She bore Anne 3 sons and no daughters. The firstborn son was by her name Enki, and by the firstborn son was by her named Enki. By Anne, a solid foundation was its meaning. Alone on the throne was he seated. A spouse to choose was twice postponed. In his reign, concubines were brought into the palace. A son to him was not born. The dynasty thus begun was by the death of Enki disrupted. On the foundation, no offspring followed. The middle son, though not the firstborn, the legal heir was pronounced. From his youth, one of 3 brothers, Ib, by his mother was lovingly called. The one in the middle, his name did mean. By the royal annals, and Ib, he is named. In the kingship celestial by generations, the one who is Anne's son, the name signified. He followed his father Anne on Nibiru's throne. By count, he was the 3rd to reign. The daughter of his younger brother he chose to be his spouse, Nin-Ib. She was called the Lady of Ib. The son to Anib by Nin-Ib was born. The successor on the throne he was, the 4th by the count of kings. By the royal name, Anshargal, Anshargal, A-N period S-H-A-R Gal. By the royal name and Shargo, he wished himself to be known. An's prince, who is greatest of princes, was the meaning. His spouse, a half-sister, Shargo, was equally named. Knowledge and understanding were his chief ambition. The ways of the heavens he assiduously studied. Yes. Yes. Go ahead. The great circuit of Nibiru he studied. Its length a shar to be he fixed. As 1 year of Nibiru was the measure by its royal reigns to be numbered and recorded. The shar to 10 portions he divided, 2 festivals thereby he pronounced. When nearest to the sun's quarters, a festival of the warmth was celebrated. When to its far abode Nibiru was distant, the festival of coolness was decreed. Replacing all olden festivals of tribes and nations, to unify the people, the two were established. Laws of husband and wife, sons and daughters, by decree he established. Customs from the first tribes he proclaimed for the whole land. From the wars, females greatly outnumbered males. Decrees he made, 1 male to have more than 1 female for knowing. By law, 1 wife as official spouse to be chosen, first wife to be called. By law, the firstborn son was his father's successor. By these laws, confusion soon came about. If the firstborn son, not by the first wife, was born, and thereafter by the first wife a son was born, by law the legal heir becoming, who shall be the successor? The one by the count of the Shar's firstborn, or the one by the firstborn wife? Or the one by the first wife born. Okay, real quick. So they laying out these laws, just like when you have in Israel the community laws being laid out, right? Okay, so what they're saying is the person who takes over the throne, it should be a male. So if you take a wife, by law, you should have 1 wife. But if the wife can't give you a son, then you can have concubines in hopes that one of the concubines can give you a son. Bless the Lord that I've given my husband 5 sons first. Blessed am I above all women. Like, okay, so y'all know I had to add some silliness in there. So what they're saying is, okay, so you got the king on the throne and his official wife, his wife, like you get one wife. If your wife can't give you a son and you decide, okay, we're going to go ahead and bring in concubines for the sake of the next person who's going to take over the throne, what if the concubine, one of the concubines has a son, and then after the concubine bears a son for the king, his wife gets pregnant again by him, and then a son comes? That's where the confusion came about. Okay, so now who does the throne really belong to? Is it the one born by the Shars, meaning in the according to time, he was born first? That's what they're labeling like the Shars, or I think the Shars represent the years, right? So the one who was actually born first in time, or the one who actually comes from your wife, who takes the throne now? So that's what we're talking about. Here's how confusion began to come in. Okay, so let's go back. By law, 1 wife as official spouse to be chosen, first wife to be called. By law, the firstborn son was his father's successor. By these laws, confusion soon came about. If the firstborn son, not by the first wife, was born, and thereafter the first wife a son was born, by the law, the legal heir becoming, who shall be the successor? The one by the count of Shar's firstborn, the one by the first wife born. We can see that with Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, right? Isaac and Ishmael. Legally, Ishmael broke through the matrix first, but it wasn't through Sarah, his wife. It was by a concubine, Sarah's servant, right? But then his actual wife begins, she gets pregnant, and she gives wife to literally the firstborn son by her, but from his loins, literally it was Ishmael, who came out first, who was literally Abraham's firstborn son. But by wife, and according to law, it needed to come through your chosen wife. And that would be considered your firstborn son according to heir rule. So he would be the heir, the one through your official first wife, not the concubine. I'm just saying. All right. And thereafter, by the first wife, a son was born, by law the legal heir becoming. Who shall be the successor? The one by the count of Shar's firstborn, the one by the first wife born, the firstborn son, the legal heir. Who shall inherit? Who shall succeed? In the reign of Anashargal, Kishargal, as first wife was pronounced, a half sister of the king she was. In Anshargal's reign, concubines were again brought into the palace. By the concubines, sons and daughters to the king were born. A son by one was the first to be born. The son of a concubine was the firstborn. Thereafter, Kishargal bore a son. The legal heir by law he was, the firstborn he was not. In the palace, Kishargal raised her voice in anger, shouting, "If by rules my son, by a first wife born from succession, shall be barred, let the double seed not be neglected. Though of different mothers, of one father the king and I are offspring. I am the king's half-sister. Of me, the king is half-brother. By that my son, double seed of our father Anib possesses. Let henceforth the law of the seed, the law of the espousal overpower. Let henceforth a son by a half-sister, whenever born, above all other sons, rise to succession." And Shargal, contemplating the law of the seed, embraced with favor confusion of spouse and concubines, of marriage and divorce, by it would be avoided. Confusion of spouse and concubines, of marriage and divorce, by it would be avoided. In their council, the royal counselors of the law of the seed for succession adopted. By the king's order, the scribes, the decree recorded. Thus the king, by the law of the seed for succession, was proclaimed. To him the royal name Anshar was granted. Fifth on the throne he was. Hey, guys, calm down. Okay, y'all, we actually almost done. We're on page 29. Now this is the account of the reign of Anshar and the kings who followed. When the law was changed, the other princes were contending. Words there were, rebelling there was not. And his spouse Anshar, a half-sister, chose. He made her first wife. By the name Kishar she was called. Thus was by this law the dynasty continued. In the reign of Anshar, the fields diminished their yields, fruits and grains lost abundance. From circuit to circuit, nearing the sun, heat grew stronger. In the faraway abode, coolness was more biting. In Agade, the throne city, the king, those of great understanding assembled. Learned servants, those of great knowledge, to inquire were commanded. The land and the soil they examined, the lakes and streams they put to the test. It has happened before, some gave an answer. Nibiru in the past, colder or warmer, has grown. A destiny it is, in the circuit of Nibiru embedded. Others of knowledge, the circuit observing, Nibiru's destiny to blame did not consider. In the atmosphere, a breaching has occurred. That was their finding. Volcanoes, the atmosphere's forebears, less belching, were spitting up. Okay, so the volcanoes are starting to erupt now, right? Okay. Also, pay attention to what's happening along the what they call it, the ring of fire with the volcanoes. Pay attention to a lot of this other stuff. Now the news is putting out things. They're putting out a lot of propaganda, but within the propaganda they're also putting out the truth. But if you're not aware of some of these things, you probably won't pick it up, and therefore you're going to count it all as rubbish, right? I've come to find out that they are nowadays, with the development of technology and how people who picked it up, how people can what's that app? You can Photoshop stuff. In the era of photoshopping and the way people think that, oh, that's Photoshop, they're actually releasing some real unphotoshopped things. They can just put it out there without doing anything to it, because it's already going to be this uproar and this mix of feelings, or this Photoshop, that they're not even caring about that anymore. But if you do a little bit of research and start looking into some of the things and some of the ancient tablets and some actual scientific data, and you can kind of test some of these things yourself, you're going to realize they're putting more truth out there than lies. They're adding lies too. There are lies they're putting out, but it's also some truth they're putting out there, as well as the truth that they're putting out in some of the movies that they release, and a lot of the movies nowadays that they release, right? So that's when I realized, when I started seeing it from both sides, I had to just sit back and just open up my mind a little bit more to consider all the information until I can rightfully discredit or just take this piece off the table completely, right? But for now, the table is getting a little bit bigger. We got a lot of pieces we need to filter through. And don't disregard it at first glance. Just put it to the side, because we may not have found a piece that will integrate that particular portion yet, right? Y'all's kind of suspect right here, but we're gonna put it on the suspect table, right? But we ain't gonna trash it just yet. When we put it in trash, it's on the suspect table, because we haven't found anything linking yet. But some things we're starting to find the links, right? Whether climate change, a lot of, they label it different things, but just stick with me. Stay in class. You got to see this thing all the way through, y'all. All right, we're almost done. Okay. Hey, turn that down, Zay. In the atmosphere, a breaching has occurred. That was their finding. Volcanoes, the atmosphere's forebears, less belching, were spitting up. Nibiru's air has thinner been made. The protective shield has been diminished. In the reign of Ansar and Kishar, pestilences of field made appearances. Toil could them not overcome. Isaiah.
Get it down.
Well, whose is that that's real loud? Okay, thank you. Their son, Enshar, then the throne ascended. Of the dynasty, the sixth he was. Lordly master of the Shar, the name did signify. With great understanding he was born. With much learning he mastered much knowledge. The remedy, the affliction ways he sought. Of Nibiru's heavenly circuit he made much study. In its loops of the sun's family, 5 members it embraced. Planets of dazzling beauty. For cures to the afflictions, their atmospheres he caused to be examined. To each he gave a name. Ancestral forefathers he honored. As heavenly couples he them considered. Mr. Murphy.
Look like I surprised you or something.
No. I just wanted to say greetings, O great wise king. Are you hungry?
Keep on. Keep on.
Okay. Look, okay, y'all. To remedy the afflictions, ways he sought. Of Nibiru's heavenly circuit he made much study. In its loop of the sun's family, 5 members it embraced. Planets of dazzling beauty. For cures to the afflictions, their atmosphere he caused to be examined. To each he gave a name. Ancestral forefathers he honored. As heavenly couples he considered them. And to the twin-like planets he called the first 2 to be encountered. Beyond in Nibiru's circuit were Anshar and Kishar, in their size the largest. As a messenger, Gaga among the others coursed, sometimes first Nibiru to meet. 5 in all were Nibiru's heavenly greeters as the sun it circled. Beyond, like a boundary, the hammer bracelet the sun encircled. As a guardian of the heavens' forbidden region with havoc it protected. Other children of the sun other children of the sun, 4 in number, from intrusion the bracelet shielded. The atmospheres of the 5 greeters in Shar set out to study. In its repeating circuit, the 5 in Nibiru's loop carefully were examined. What atmospheres they possessed by observation, and with celestial chariots intensely were examined. The findings were astounding, the discoveries confusing. From circuit to circuit, Nibiru's atmosphere more breaching suffered, and the councils of the learned cures were avidly debated. Ways to bandage the wound were urgently considered. A new shield to embrace the planet was attempted. All that was thrust up back to the ground came down. In the councils of the learned, the belching volcanoes were studied. The atmosphere by belching volcanoes having been created, its wound by their diminished belching had it come. Let with intervention new belching be encouraged. Let volcanoes spew again, one savant group was saying. How the feat to achieve, with what tools more belching to attain, none the king could inform. In the reign of Ensar, the breach in the skies grew bigger. Rains were withheld, winds blew harder, springs from the depths did not arise. In the lands, there was an accursation, the breasts of mothers were dry. In the palace there was distress, an accusation therein took hold. As his first wife, Inshar, a half-sister, did espouse by the law of the seed abiding. Ninshar, she was called, of the Shars, the lady, a son she did not bear. By a concubine to Inshar, a son was born, the firstborn son he was. By Ninshar, first wife and half-sister, a son was not brought forth. By the law of succession, the concubine's son, the throne ascended, the 7th to reign he was. Du-Uru was his royal name, and the dwelling place fashioned was its meaning. In the house of concubines, not in the palace, was he indeed conceived, and his spouse, a maiden from his youth, beloved Duru, chose, by love, not by seed, a first wife he selected. Da-Uru was her royal name. She who is by my side was the meaning. In the royal court, confusion was rampant. Sons were not heirs, wives were not half-sisters. In the land, suffering was increasing. The fields forgot their abundance. Among the people, fertility was diminished. In the palace, fertility was absent. Neither son nor daughter was brought forth. Of An's seed, 7 were the rulers. Then of his seed, the throne was dry. Duru was a child at the palace gateway found. As a son, she embraced him. Duru, in the end, as a son, him adopted. Legal heir, him decreed. Lama, meaning dryness, was his name given. In the palace, the princes were grumbling. In the council of counselors, there were complaints. In the end, Lama, the throne ascended. Though not of An's seed, he was the 8th to reign. In the councils of the learned, to heal the breach, there were 2 suggestions. One was to use metal. Gold was its name. On Nibiru, it was greatly rare. With the hammered bracelet, it was abundant. It was the only substance that to the finest powder could be ground. Lofted high to heaven, suspended it could remain. Thus, with replenishments, the breach it would heal, protection make better. Let celestial boats be built. Let a celestial fleet the gold to Nubaru bring over. Let weapons of terror be created, was the other suggestion. Weapons that shake the ground loose, the mountains split asunder. With missiles, the volcanoes to attack, their dormancy to be stirred, their belching to increase, the atmosphere to replenish, the breach to make disappear. For a decision, Lama was too feeble. What choice to make, he knew not. So they're trying to figure out how we're going to get this precious substance of gold. Should we create these weapons of mass destruction or these weapons of terror to blow the ground up to get it? Or should there be another way, right? So this is why the weapons of terror were created in the first place, to shake loose the ground to get the gold that could help them repair the breaches, right? Okay. Let me go back. With missiles, the volcanoes to attack, their dormancy to be stirred, their belching to increase, the atmosphere to replenish, the breach to make disappear. For a decision, Lama was too feeble. What choice to make, he knew not. One circuit Nibiru completed, 2 shars Nibiru to count continued. In the fields, affliction was not diminished. By volcanic belching, the atmosphere was not repaired. A 3rd shar passed, a 4th was counted. Gold was not obtained. In the land, strife was abundant. Food and water were not abundant. In the land, unity was gone. Accusations were abundant. In the royal court, savants were coming and going. Counselors were rushing in and out. The king, to their words, paid no attention. Counsel from his spouse, he only sought. Lama was her name. If destiny it be, let us beseech the great creator of all. To the king, she said, beseeching, not actings, provided the only hope. In the royal court, the princes were astir. At the king, accusations were directed. Foolishly, Bella.
Mom, I need something.
Yeah, I need you to pause that.
Mom,
Tootie.
I need something for my lips.
Okay, well, pause that and I'll give you some. We both can get some. Pause that first. But first of all, I'm about to kick you out of here. Thank you. So I take it and put it up all the way. Okay. All right, y'all. I had to turn it down myself. All right. What was that at? Oh, I'm over here. Okay. A 3rd shar passed, a 4th was counted. Gold was not obtained. In the land, strife was abundant. Food and water were not abundant. In the land, unity was gone. Accusations were abundant. In the royal court, savants were coming and going. Counselors were rushing in and out. The king, to their words, paid no attention. Counsel from his spouse, he only sought. Lama was her name. If destiny it be, let us beseech the great creator of all. To the king, she said, beseeching, not actings, provide the only hope. So you have these guys recognize that there is a greater king, the great Lord of all. All of us, even all of us created gods. Stay in class. We ain't getting rid of the creator. Listen, we're just trying to shake all this out, make sure we get all the pieces in its rightful order. If destiny it be, let us beseech the great creator of all. To the king, she said, beseeching, not actings, provide the only hope. In the royal court, the princes were astir. At the king, accusations were directed. Foolishly, unreasoning, greater calamities instead of cure, he brought forth. From the oldest storehouses, weapons were retrieved. Of rebellion, there was much speaking. A prince in the royal palace was the first to take up arms. By words of promise, the other princes he agitated. Alalu was his name. Let Lama be king no more, he shouted. Let decision supplant hesitation. Come, let us unnerve the king in his dwelling place. Let him the throne abandon. The princes, to his words, gave heed. The gate of the palace they rushed. To the throne room, its entrance restricted, like onrushing waters they went. To the tower of the palace the king escaped. Alalu was pursuing him. In the tower there was a struggle. Lama fell down to his death. Lama is no more, Alalu shouted. The king is no more, with glee he announced. To the throne room Alalu rushed. On the throne he himself seated. Without right or counsel, a king himself he pronounced. In the land unity was lost. Some by death of Lama rejoiced. Others by Alalu's deed were saddened. Now this is the account of the kingship of Alalu and the going to earth. So think about the sons of God coming down to earth. So all of this was like a prerequisite to the sons coming down to the earth to have sex with the human women and why they came down, right? So keep Book of Enoch, Genesis in the forefront of your mind. And Jasher. Okay, now this is the account. Remember, this is talking about like the... Hey, go upstairs. Go.
Hit me in my neck.
Go let your father know. Go tell your father. You scratching me. Both of y'all. Y'all need to go before the king. Back. Go. It's the captain's mask. Josiah and Isaiah is coming to see you for righteous judgment. Now this is the account of the kingship of Alalu and of the going to earth. In the land, unity was lost. About the kingship, many were aggrieved. In the palace, princes were agitated. In the council, counselors were distraught. From father to son, succession from An on the throne continued. Even Lama, the eighth, by adoption a son, was proclaimed. Who was Alalu? Was he a legal heir? Was he firstborn? By what right did he usurp? Was he not a king's slayer? Before the seven who judged Alalu was summoned, his fate to consider. Before the seven who judged, Alalu spread his pleas. Though neither legal heir nor a son firstborn of royal seed indeed he was. Of Anshagal am I descended, before the judges he claimed. By a concubine my ancestor was to him born, Elam was his name. By the count of Shars, Elam was the firstborn, the throne to him belonged. By conniving the queen his rights put aside. The law of the seed from naught she created, for her son the kingship obtained. Elam of kingship she deprived, to her son insisted, it was granted. By descent of Elam's generation am I continued, the seed of Anshagal is within me. The seven who judged to Alalu's words gave heed. To the council of counselors they passed the matter, truth or falsehood to ascertain. The royal annals from the house of records were brought forth. With much care they were read. And Antu, the first royal couple were 3 sons and no daughters born to the... Hold on. And Antu, the first royal couple were 3 sons and no daughters to them were born. The firstborn was Enki. He died on the throne. He had no offspring. The middle son, in his stead, the throne ascended, and Nib was his name. Anshagal was his firstborn. The throne he ascended. After him on the throne, kingship by the firstborn did not continue. The law of succession by the law of the seed was supplanted. A concubine's son was the firstborn. The law of the seed of the kingship he was deprived. The kingship instead to Kishagal's son was granted. Her being a half-sister of the king was the reason. Of the concubine's son, the firstborn, the annals made no record. Of him I am descended. Alalu to the counselors cried out. By the law of succession, to him kingship belong. By the law of succession, to kingship I am now entitled. Ask me who I am, princess. Or that's not my name, princess. Ask me what my name is. What's your name? Or who are you? I was about to do the whole Black Panther scene when Killmonger was brought up into the conference room where they were having a meeting. Oh, y'all living good up here. Why it's millions of people who look like us spread to the four corners of the earth. Pretty much need your help, but I just kind of summed it up. That's not the exact words, but Killmonger, right? Okay. Of the concubine's son, the firstborn, the annals made no record. Of him I am descended. Alalu to the counselors cried out. By the law of succession, to him kingship belong. By the law of succession, to the kingship I am now entitled. Oh, I don't need the whole country. I just need you, right? There's we got to go through this process, pulling the whole country together to watch this fight go on between Black Panther and Killmonger. Oh, I don't need the whole country. I just need you. Without hesitation, the counselors of Alalu an oath of truth demanded. Alalu swore the oath of life or death. As king, the council him considered. They summoned the elders. They summoned the princes. Before them, the decision was pronounced. From among the princes, a young prince stepped forward about the kingship words he wished to say. Succession must be reconsidered to the assembly, he said. Though neither firstborn nor by the queen a son of pure seed am I descended, the essence of An is in me preserved, by no concubine diluted. The counselors heard the words with amazement. The young prince stepped closer, they summoned. They asked for his name. It is Anu, after my father An, and I am... Hold on. I'm trying to get into character reading this. They asked for his name. It is Anu, after my forefather An, am I named. They inquired about his generations. Of An's 3 sons, he reminded them. Enki was the firstborn. Without son or daughter, he died. And Nib was the middle son. Instead of Enki, the throne he ascended. And Nib, the daughter of his younger brother, took to be wife. From them onward, the succession is in the annals recorded. Who is that younger brother? A son of An, and Antu, one of the purest seed. The counselors with wonderment look at each other. Nuru was his name. Anu to them announced he was my great ancestor. His spouse, Ninuru, was a half-sister. Her son was firstborn. Inama was his name. His wife was a half-sister. By laws of seed and succession and son, she bore him. I found my daddy with panther claws in his chest. Y'all gotta go watch it. Black Panther. His wife was a half-sister. By laws of seed and succession, a son she bore him. Of pure descent, the generations continue. By law and by seed, perfect. Anu, after our forefather An, did my parents name me. From the throneship we were removed. From An's pure seed we were not removed. Let Anu be king, many counselors shouted. Let Alalu be removed. Others cautioned, did counsel. Let strife be prevented. Let unity prevail. They called in Alalu, the discovered findings to be told. To the prince Anu, Alalu his arm embraced offered. To Anu he thus said, though by different offsprings of one ancestor we are both descended, let us live in peace together, Nibiru, to abundance return. Let me keep the throne, let you keep the succession. To the council's word he directed, let Anu crowned prince be, let him be my successor. Let his son my daughter espouse, let succession be united. Anu bowed before the council. To the assembly he thus declared, Alalu's cupbearer I shall be. his successor in waiting, a son of mine, a daughter of his, as bride shall choose. This was the council's decision. In royal annals it was inscribed. In this manner, Alalu on the throne remained seated. He summoned the sages, savants, and commanders he consulted. For deciding, he gained much knowledge. Let celestial boats be constructed. He decided to seek the goal in the hammered bracelet. In the hammered bracelet. By the hammered bracelets, the boats were crushed. None of them returned. Let the weapons of terror, the bowels of Nibiru, be cut open. Let volcanoes erupt again, he then commanded. With weapons of terror, sky-borne chariots were armed. With terror, missiles from the skies were volcanoes struck. The mountains swayed, the valleys shuddered as great brilliances with thunder exploded. In the land there was much rejoicing, of abundance there were expectations. In the palace, Anu was for Alalu the cupbearer. He would bow at Alalu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alalu's hand. Alalu was the king. Anu was a servant, by him was treated. In the land rejoicing receded, rains were withheld, winds blew harder. The belching by volcanoes did not increase. The breach in the atmosphere did not heal. In the heavens, Nibiru, its circuits, kept coursing from circuit to circuit. Heat and cold grew harder to suffer. The people of Nibiru ceased to revere their king. Instead of relief, misery he caused. Alalu on the throne remained seated. The strong and wise Anu, foremost among the princes, was standing before him. He would bow to Alalu's feet, set the drinking cup in Alalu's hand. For 9 counted periods, Alalu was king on Nibiru. In the 9th Shar, Anu gave battle to Alalu. To hand combat, with bodies naked, Alalu he challenged. Let the winner be king, Anu said. They grappled with each other in the public square. Doorposts trembled and walls shook. Pay attention to this, y'all. Pay attention to this. Now they fighting for the throne. This is this whole scene, but they didn't show this particular part when Killmonger and the Black Panther was fighting. This is pretty disgusting. What's gonna happen here? But when we hold on. Oh, we don't get the details for this right here, but it's gonna let you know. I think it's in the 2nd tablet. That's gonna tell you exactly what they did. Alalu bent his knee to the ground. He fell on his chest. Alalu in combat was defeated. By acclaim, Anu was held as king. Anu to the palace was escorted. Alalu to the place did not return. From the crowds, he stealthily escaped. Of dying like Lama, he was fearful. Unbeknownst to the others, to the place of the celestial chariots he hurriedly went. Into a missile-throwing chariot Alalu climbed. Its hatch behind him he closed. The 4-part chamber he entered, the commander's seat he occupied. That which shows the way he lit up, with bluish aura the chamber filling. The firestones he stirred up, their hum like music was enthralling. The chariot's great cracker he enlivened, a reddish brilliance it was casting. Unbeknownst to the others, in the celestial boat Alalu from Nibiru escaped. The snow-hued earth Alalu set his course. By a secret from the beginning, he chose his destination. And that is the end of the 1st tablet. So the 2nd tablet is about to get into when they came down to earth. So that's kind of like the backstory of what was happening, what caused them to come down to earth in the very first place. So go back and listen to this. If you need to listen to it again, let it sink in. If you want to go back and listen to one of the other people that read it, and she probably reads through it a lot faster than what I did. Listen to it from there, right? So keep all this in mind tomorrow when we come back and we see when and why they descended upon the earth and what they were looking for, right? And why they began to have sex with the human women. Now, I will warn you ahead of time that some of the sexual scenes told about in here. I ain't gonna say they graphic, but you're gonna get an earful. It's said in a way that I think is a modest way, but it's like really blatant what is happening, right? So I just want to warn you ahead of time before we start getting to that, because I listen to it, I'm like, what? So just want to warn you ahead of time. So that, my beautiful people, is our reading for today. I need to get my whatchamacallit. So we read the beginning introduction, we read the attestation, we read the synopsis of the first tablet and the first tablet, right? And so we'll pick this up tomorrow on page 40. We stopped on page 39. The second tablet, or the synopsis to the second tablet, begins on page 40. All right, so I hope y'all enjoyed it. I guess y'all enjoyed it somewhat. Y'all done stayed here, but stay to the end of class. If you miss parts, if you come back, just go back and pick up where you left off at, right? All right, so with that being said, beautiful people, ask questions or hold your questions, whatever have you. We got to talk about it while we're putting this information together. You're welcome, Jen. So, but once we start getting to when they actually come down here on Earth, and some of the stuff we see in the Bible, like, it's like, wait a minute, hold on. They said what? This was what? Wait, hold on. They phrased this in a whole nother different way that makes us think it. When they comprise the Bible, they playing, I'm telling you, they playing Jedi mind tricks on you. They giving you half stories. Remember how well, if you've been here long enough, you hear me always say that Genesis, like this whole Bible is, well, at least the Old Testament, really. It's like the cliff notes of a bigger story. They're literally taking a couple sentences from the different tablets and putting it together like it's a bigger, like this is it, when it's not. It's so much in between that we have missed. And if we get some of these missing pieces, when we go through and we read through the Torah now, we can read it in its proper perspective. If we're gonna keep what we have, at least we'll know the backstory and what's really going on. And so when they get into the parts about these other gods from the other nations and stuff, you will know what's really going on. Okay. All right. So I hope y'all enjoyed that for today. Y'all, it is Saturday, January the 29th, 2022. Did I put the day? Yeah, I'm sorry. Day 17 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1035. We read the rest of Genesis, which was the last 2 chapters, chapter 49 and 50. And then we read chapter 18 of My Big Toe. And then we started reading the Lost Book of Enki, which tomorrow will be the first part of our reading. We're not replacing the Torah, but since this is where the Torah was taken from, we're reading through this in the place where we would normally read the Torah until we get through it, right? So it's not replacing, we're just filling in with this for the first half, and then once we get through the portion that we're going to read for that day, then we'll continue to do My Big Toe towards the end of it, right? And this is expanding our big toe on all areas, right? Spiritually, physically, what we can see here, how we can kind of see why things is looking a certain type of way. Just trust me. Just stay in class. You'll begin to see some of these things I'm talking about as your mind and your perception is being expanded to include other information you weren't previously privy to, right? Okay, but they've been passing it around forever to everybody except for the ones who really need it, right? Okay, you can see why. So remember, keep everything, all the experiments that they've been doing on certain type of people. Remember Henrietta Lacks? Keep her. If you don't know about Henrietta Lacks, go looking into Henrietta Lacks. You know, all of those things. How we're supposed to be feeding our bodies, what we're eating. Yes, Francis, my sister, it is the same way in the New Covenant. Yes, I'm telling you, just all these are pieces of a bigger puzzle. We're going to begin to more thoroughly understand it than what we have in previous days, right? But you got to make sure you got all, at least what, I ain't gonna say they all the missing pieces of the puzzle, but there are a lot of pieces of this puzzle that we have to remember and keep included everywhere. We're gonna identify who is really who, right? Because we'll still see, even though we're waking up, coming out of Christianity, some of us may be going into the Hebrew roots, whatever you want to call it, but you're still going to see that they have half information too. Probably more than the Christians, but definitely still not all of the information. And some of the arguments that they currently have going on between themselves are arguing with the apologetics and all, whatever they want to term themselves, right? It'll be no reason for any of that, right?
Video never be on for this long.
I know the video doesn't ever be on for this long.
Why isn't it?
Well, first of all, you're not getting on my laptop, my G. All right, y'all. With that being said, let's go ahead and do this blessing and get out of here. They trying to get on my stuff. Y'all is not getting on my new laptop. You know.
The old laptop. Then.
Yeah, no, that's trash.
Fix it.
It's completely trash. It's like 40 years old. No, son.
Okay.
Hold on. All right, y'all. So remember, the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel before us, presenting gifts, and will guard us with a hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Remember, when you get a chance, go look into, if you haven't already, the Epic of Gilgamesh. I will post it under this video on Facebook and on YouTube, and I put it in the community section. Go listen to it, right? This is a very old tablet that's way older than the Bible, right? Just read it or listen to it. I'm telling you, it's gonna help bring some clarity to some other stuff, and you should really start asking questions. You really should, right? Just to make sure we are not being led astray in any kind of way. With that being said, beautiful people, I love y'all. I will see y'all back here tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bruce and Linda, have a y'all-some day. All right, y'all. Love y'all. If I can push the button, hold on. Hold on.